Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this auspicious day. It is episode 100 of Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at common Magic the Gathering cards and I tell you, are they good in the Pauper format or not? As you can see by the timestamp, I'm doing something real stupid. I am going to look, because it is our 100th episode, I am going to look at 100 common cards today. I have no idea how long it is going to take. You obviously do know how long it's going to take. That's the fun for you, and that's the horror for me. Let's get going. We've got to do 100 of these things, so I'm sure. Let's do one thing I want to do before I start. I'm going to keep a count of how many duplicates of ones that we get from this same recording. You know, I'll have duplicates, I'm sure, from previous episodes, but I want to see how many duplicates we get. I mean, there's over 10,000 cards. We probably will be fine, but 100's a good sample size, so I bet we get some dupes. All right, first card. Read the Tides is 5 and a blue for a sorcery. Choose one, draw 3 cards, or return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. It seems good, right? These are things blue wants to do. Generally, they want to do them at instant speed, but sorcery speed is, fine, I guess, to draw 3 cards. 6 mana, though, when it costs you 6 mana, you're just not gonna play that. You really aren't. I mean, I guess you get the modality of having draw 3 cards or returning the creatures, but Lorraine Revealed draws 3 cards for 5 mana. And that's the one you're going to use most often. And that also can do the island cycling thing. This is not really all that playable in Pauper. Let's go with a... Oh, goodness, these scores. I'm gonna have to give 100 scores today. Let's go with a... let's go with a 1.8. Keep on moving. Card number 2. We're almost done, basically. Vidalcan Mesmerist is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Vidalcan Wizard. Whenever this creature attacks, target creature an opponent controls gets -2, -0 until end of turn. That's interesting, but not all that great. I mean, I guess that makes it pretty cool as who cares that it has 1 toughness, because you're swinging in and hopefully blanking the other creature that the opponent has. So what can they do about it? And that's cool, but more often than not, you want this mode to be on like Humbling Elder. Can we take a look at Humbling Elder? Humbling Elder does not count as a 3rd card, unfortunately. Humbling Elder. So when this creature enters, target creature gets -2, -0 until end of turn, but it has flash, so you flash it in to make like a combat trick, make bad blocks and things like that. This is doing something a little bit different, and I kind of don't hate it, but I don't particularly love it either. I just think you can do more stuff for 2 mana in blue than this. And also because it's not an enters trigger, you have to wait for this creature to be on the table for a whole turn before it actually gets to do what it wants to do. So your opponent can pretty easily knock this guy out. But would they? Because it's not really going to do a whole heck of a lot. I think it's neat, but I don't think it's very good. And neat but not good cards get a 2? Sure. Next up is Veteran Armorsmith. For white, you get a 2/3 human soldier. Other soldier creatures you control get +0, +1. I think there's a soldier's deck in Pauper. I really don't know. If there is, it's not meta. But it is possible, I'm pretty sure. Blue-white soldiers. I'm going to guess this guy doesn't really go in there. I'm betting you probably want power boosts more than you want toughness boosts. The double white is going to make that a little harder to do in Azorius lists, and I think all the soldiers decks are going to be Azorius lists. I could be wrong. There might just be mono white soldiers, but this guy seems interesting too. I kind of like this guy, but I want I don't love lords that only give toughness boosts. Except for like the plated sliver or something like that, because you can. That's cheap. That plated sliver costs 1. This costs 2. That's twice as many. I'm gonna give this guy. I'm gonna hedge my bets a little bit, and I'm gonna give him a 2.5. But I don't think he would really ever see play. Next up is Restless Dreams. For a single black mana, you get a sorcery that says, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, discard X cards. Return X target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. I think that's kind of cool. I feel like I reference Madness decks all the time, and I've never played a Madness deck, and I've also never played against a Madness deck. Nobody in my local has played that against me yet. So I just kind of keep thinking like, oh, Madness is this mythical type of deck that can do all these things, and there's got to be like a billion good cards for it, and it's probably true. I feel like this would be a good card for this. You can discard as many cards as you want, so you could get some potentially big plays out of this with your Madness cards that will be a lot cheaper. And you're getting creatures back from the graveyard, so you're able to grab some things that have died. I guess the problem here is that Madness decks are kind of burn decks, and they just want to go a whole lot faster. Or they want to go really fast. So is this too slow? Because why do you care about bringing stuff back out of the graveyard? You should just be continuing to burn them out. I don't know. I don't know where people fall on that logic. I have not seen this card in any of the Madness lists that I've looked at. So I'm guessing people fall on the side of this isn't playable, but I don't know, seems pretty good. You get to discard as many cards as you want and then get a bunch of creatures back too. You know, if you have like some big mill strategies that also, a bunch of stuff with flashback, but also a bunch of stuff with I don't know. I'm gonna give it same thing as the soldier. I'm gonna hedge my bets. I'm gonna say 2.5, but I think it's neat. I've said neat for 2 cards already. God, this is going to be a long night. Conduct Electricity is 4 and a red. For an instant, Conduct Electricity deals 6 damage to 1 target creature and 2 damage to up to 1 target creature token. From Bloomburrow, I do remember seeing this card in Bloomburrow. It's 5 mana for 8 damage. That seems like a pretty good deal. And it's at instant speed, but getting to 5 mana just to take out a creature, not even be able to go face, and then potentially take out another creature or hit another creature with something, but that creature has to be a token. I guess there's a good mix of creatures and tokens, Eldrazi spawns and things like that you can at least pop or force them to pop at the time that they don't necessarily want to. But more often than not, I think you should expect this to be a 5 mana do 6 damage to a thing. And I don't think that's an incredible deal. Yeah, I don't think that's a really good deal. I'm gonna go for a 1.5. I really don't like this. Next is Predatory Impetus. We've done this one. we've done this one in the past. It doesn't count for the thing, and it doesn't count for the other thing, but we have done that one. So we skip this one and move on to Wings of the Cosmos. For a single white mana, you get an instant. Target creature gets +1/+3 and gains flying until end of turn, and you untap it. Single white mana for a combat trick, and that combat trick does quite a bit, honestly. Also, I really like this art. This is some really, really solid artwork. I like the whole idea of what's going on here. There's still generally going to be better combat tricks you can do than something like this. But I kind of like it. Maybe it's just the art. Maybe it's just the art that's got me this excited about this, but I think this is all right. I think this is all right. Let's. I'm gonna give this a. I'm gonna give this a 2.7, and that's probably too high, but I like it. I like this card. I think you could do cool stuff with it. Bloodpire Elemental is 4 and a red for a 4/1 Elemental. Sacrifice this creature, it deals 4 damage to target creature, but you can activate it only as a sorcery. That's a bummer. Yeah, the sorcery thing really kills this thing. Kind of kills it dead. 1 toughness, yeah. With 1 toughness, you need to be able to react to your opponent's lightning bolt or cast into the fire or something like that. You want to be able to, yeah. No, pretty bad. I'm gonna give it a 1.3. Yeah, and get out of here. 2 Patchwork Gnomes for 3 mana. You get a 2/1 artifact gnome. You can discard a card and you can regenerate this creature. Am I falling into the madness trap again? Originally from Tempest, where it looked a little bit different. I remember that art a lot more than any of these other arts. Cost 3 mana. Madness decks don't want that. It's too slow. It's too slow, right? Right? Let's give it a 2.2. If anything, it's an interesting ability to just blank creatures and just block for a long time. It's, I don't know. I can kind of see it. Yeah. Okay. Rowan Treefolk, our first vanilla card. Ooh, we should also do a count of vanilla cards. Yeah? I'm gonna make a little V on my notebook here. See how many vanilla cards we get. Rowan Treefolk is 3 and a green for a 3/4 Treefolk. That's it. That is it. It's like a, I don't know, man. It's like a 1.2. What are you doing? What do you want me to do with vanilla creatures? Kyoshi Warrior Guard is 1 and a white for a 2/3. Also a vanilla creature. Human Warrior Ally. Those are interesting creature types, but this is a pretty disappointing card otherwise. Well, it's I mean, I guess stat-wise it's better than the Rowan Treefolk. We'll bump this one up to a 1.4. How about that? How about that? Weight of the Underworld. Have we done this one? Have we done this one? I don't remember if we've done this one before. We're going to do it. We're going to do this one. 3 and a black for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets -3, -2. That can kill a lot of creatures. But then you just paid 4 mana for a kill spell at sorcery speed. This could slow down a Gurmag Angler. Okay. Turns your Gurmag Angler into a 2/3. Yeah, this is just too much mana. Art on this one's also incredible. But yeah, as a card, I think we're going to like 1.6 territory, and that's really just because it's a removal spell. Not a good one, but it is a removal spell. Our first Champions Kamigawa card of the night is Midnight Covenant for 1 and a black. It's also an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature has pay a black, and this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it gets the Frozen Shade. Is that what it's called? Something Shade. Frozen Shade. We did this one recently too. So it kind of gets the Frozen Shade effect, which is cool. Frozen Shades are cool cards. I don't know if I necessarily want to pay 2 mana to make one of my creatures into a Frozen Shade. But if you're in mono black, you could do some interesting things with it. I just think mono black does better things faster. So we'll give this a 2.1. And good news, guys, we're a 10th of the way finished. How about that? Card number 11 is Fell Horseman. For 3 and a black, you get a zombie knight. When this creature dies, put it on the bottom of the owner's of its owner's library, and it's a 3/3. But it also has an adventure half. The adventure half is Deathly Ride. For 1 and a black, you get a sorcery adventure. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's cool. I think adventure creatures are really interesting, really nice. Generally, they're just it's kind of like a form of card advantage. You get 2 cards in one. You get to play 1 card if you play the adventure side first, and you for most of these adventure cards you should. You know, it's usually cheaper. It's usually some kind of effect that you want, and then the creature on the other side either will synergize somewhat with the thing that you just did, or will be just a nice body. And this one is mostly just a nice body. Although, if it goes back into your library, maybe you get this again. You can return another creature from your graveyard to your hand. That's kind of cool too. I don't love paying double for a Raise Dead, but when you think of it as card advantage, when you think you draw this card and you go, "Whoa! I just drew 2 cards." That's cool. That's cool. It's also a zombie. And it's also a knight. And those are pretty interesting creature types too in the Pauper format, especially zombie. But I do think we're so close to a knight's deck actually working in Pauper. I don't think we're quite there, but someday. And would this guy stay in it? Maybe a copy or 2, maybe. Probably not though. Let's give him a 2.7. He does cost a little bit too much. 4 mana for a 3/3. Basically vanilla. I mean, vanilla until he dies, so might as well be vanilla. But having that extra value stapled on him gives him some bonus points with me. Social Climber has incredible art as well. Good job, Carly Mazer. I think so. Social Climber is 2 and a green for a 3/2 human druid with Alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. So white has a ton of these effects. Green has one other one, Essence Warden, which was a planar chaos card of trying to be Soul Warden. So it's kind of functionally a white card when you think about it. But yeah, I don't think green gets a ton of these kinds of effects. And this could be nice. Imagine this in a deck where you're also playing a bunch of token generator stuff. When you're playing like a bunch of Eldrazi spawn things, your nest invaders and things like that. You get 2 creatures on the board every time you play one of those things. You're even in like a Gruul one where you're playing like the Brood Birther, which I think we did maybe like 10 episodes ago. And that can put down 3 Eldrazi spawn at once. That can be significant life gain. This might be a sideboard kind of card in some kind of green go wide, or green and something go wide deck. It's possible. The problem is green has some pretty solid sideboard options when it comes to trying to gain life. The Weather the Storm is the big obvious one, but there's some other one. Pulse Marasa is also pretty good. So you just have options to gain life that you don't really need this, but I think this is kind of good. It's also a druid. I mean, it's also a human, which can be useful, but it's also a druid, which is a pretty nice creature type as well. If you're going to pair it with something like Llanowar Elves, which is an elf druid, you can do some things with those. And the art's really good. And don't forget, the art is actually really good. Let's go with I'm going to go with a 3, which feels maybe a bit too high. This costs 3 times what a Soul Warden does, and does half of what a Soul Warden does, kind of, because it's only your creatures, not the opponent's too, like Soul Warden. But halfway decent body in a color that doesn't always get this kind of effect. Yeah, okay. Next is Seething Anger. For a single red mana, you get a sorcery that has buyback of 3, so you can pay an additional 3 as you cast the spell. If you do, You put the card into your hand as it resolves, and it gives target creature +3/+0 until end of turn. Originally from Stronghold. It's real bad, right? The sorcery is probably what kills it the most. If this was an instant, I could start to make an argument for it. But as a sorcery, as a 1, just a 1, you will never play this card, and you won't ever really want to. Exhume. Ooh, first big staple of the night. Exhume is 1 and a black for a sorcery. Each player puts a creature card from their graveyard onto the battlefield. Sounds kind of bad, right? Like, why would I want to give my opponent a free creature? Well, when this thing only costs 2, what you do is you cycle something into the graveyard on turn 1. Probably a Troll of Khazad-dûm if you're in black, but it could also be a Generosant. Could also be all sorts of things. And then you're able to put another land out on turn 2, which obviously you will be able to do if you played one of those cycling guys. That gives you a second land. You play your second land. You play Exhume. It's turn 2. Does your opponent have a creature in the graveyard? Probably not. So I get a Troll of Khazad-dûm. I get a 6/5 with triple menace or whatever it is. Can't be blocked by less than 3 creatures. They have nothing. Turn 2, I have a 6/5. Hell yeah. You can do some other cool stuff with Exhume too. Generally, the decks that play this, the Dredge decks, but other decks can play this too. They're going to find ways of putting a bunch of stuff in their graveyard. And they will either be able to take care of an opponent's graveyard, or they just don't care. That your opponent isn't necessarily thinking, oh, well, I've built my deck to put a bunch of big creatures into the graveyard too. No, whatever their deck is, they might have a bunch of little fairies or stupid shit in their graveyard. And so you throw this down, you come out with a 6/5 or an 8/8 or whatever the hell you put in there, and your opponent's best creature is what? 2/2, 2/3, something like that. That's just really good value. The only problem is when you go up against the mirror, because if you're going in the mirror, they might have those big creatures in the graveyard. Still, Exhume is a hell of a card. What a banger. And we're gonna give Exhume. I'm gonna give Exhume an 8.1. Really good card. With I like this art. I'm not gonna say it's good art. Like it's not very pleasant art, but it is pretty cool art. I'm not a big fan of the Dustmourne one, but damn, great card. Are we gonna get anything better than Exhume the rest of the night? I don't know. That's gonna be a tough one. Heroic Defiance is 1 and a white for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 unless it shares a color with the most common color among permanents, or a color tied for most common. All right, so the deal here is, if you can play this and the enchanted creature gets +3/+3 unless it shares, the creature has to share color with the most common color among all permanents or tied. Huh. So you probably don't want to play this in a pure white deck, because you have a 50-50 shot generally of putting down more permanents of one color than your opponent does, who might be in multiple colors, but even if they're in a single color, it's kind of a 50-50 shot. And it's probably even worse than that, because if you're in white, you're probably going wide in some way, which means you'll have more permanents of probably white. And that will make your creature, that will make this do nothing. Just, you paid 2 mana for nothing. But let's say you put this in an Orzhov list or an Azorius list or something like that. Or, if you're in 3 or 4 colors, okay. Now there's much less of a chance that your creature's color is the most prevalent of anything. And then you get a nice boost. 2 mana for a permanent 3/3. I guess it's not permanent, because if your opponent puts down more to change the colors, or kills stuff to change the colors, or you kill stuff to change the colors, you can lose that benefit right away. But I bet a deck could take advantage of this. It is still just 2 mana for +3/+3 in stats, which is good for the value, but you're not getting any extra evasion or anything off of that. So I think generally you'd just stay away from it, and you wouldn't deal with the headache of trying to count numbers of colors of permanents and get really frustrated. I wouldn't play this just because I'd be frustrated by it, but I also don't think it's an amazing card. We'll give it a 1.9. Alms of the Vein is 2 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life, and it has madness for a single black. I believe, if I'm right, this is a pretty big card in the madness decks, the Rakdos madness decks for sure. I think mono red also has a madness deck, I think, and obviously it wouldn't play this because it's a black card, but the Rakdos Madness card or decks can play this, and I think they do. This is a 6 life swing for potentially a single mana, and that's awesome. That is really good. No problems with this card whatsoever. I don't think it's Exhume worthy. Well, it's probably up there. I'm gonna give this a 7.8. This is a really good card in those Madness decks. And that might just be me not having enough experience with Madness, either, again, as a player or an opponent. So I don't quite know how deadly this card can be. But, you spend your 2 mana, discard 1, draw 2. You discard this. You pay 1 more to make that 6 life swing, and you get 2 extra cards out of the deal from the other spell. Whew. That's hot. That is hot right there. Good card. I'm probably biased against Exhume. I do have a dredge deck, so I just like that generally. Hey, I don't think we've actually ever gotten this card, but it has been on the title screen for common knowledge every single time, because it's we do that in alphabetical order, and Abby is hard to beat. Abby Matron is 2 and a white for a 1/3 human cleric. You can pay a white, tap it, and this creature gets +0/+3 until end of turn. That's bad. This is a bad card. If it could give any creature +0, +0/+3, it would still be bad. But only being able to do it to itself, you're paying 3 mana for a 1/3. That sucks. And then you're having to pay another mana to potentially make this thing into a 1/6. It is from Homelands. All the Homelands commons had secondary arts. We've only ever seen the A art. What is the B art? It's not nearly as good. This one's just way better. Weirdly, they're the same price. I would think. I guess that's not weird. It's the same card, but I would think this one would be way more popular. Just look at that face. Look at that face. God, is that going to be the cover art? We had some other good cover art options so far, but what great art. Oh God, I hope that coughin doesn't keep up. Let's go with a 1. It's can I give this better than a 1? I don't think I can. Next is Twisted Spider Clone for 3 and a green. We get a 4/4 Spider Human. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Not particularly good. It's 4 mana 4/4, so the rate is okay. And adding a +1/+1 counter to stuff is good, but those things had to have already had the counter on them. You can finagle that in a couple of ways, so it's possible that this thing could play this card for 4 mana, and you get the 4 from this, the 4 power out of this, and you add another 1, 2, maybe even 3 power. 4 mana for 7 power seems all right, but I think it's situational enough. And again, no evasion for any of this stuff. If this guy had trample, we could talk, but he doesn't, so we can't. And I'll give him a 1.7. You still gotta respect the stats, but not very good otherwise. Vampiric Fury is a 1 and a red for an instant. Vampire creatures you control get +2/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. That is pretty good. That is pretty good. I don't believe there is a dedicated vampire deck in Pauper, but there are a lot of good vampires in Pauper that are Pauper legal, or that are Pauper that are at common rather. And so I think you could put together a halfway decent deck of solid vampires, and then give them really good stats. It gives all your vampires two power and first strike. That can really blow out some opponents. That could potentially just punch in for the win. I'd have to see how many really good vampire, like Voldaren Epicure. Obviously, that's your great 1-drop. Is the Phyrexian one Eager Drinker? Eager Drinker. He's common. It's a 1/1 lifelink. That's pretty good. And he can make another thing. I mean, already I feel like I got my 1-drops just done right there. So I don't have the time to go deep into all the common vampires, but I just gave you 8 1-drops, and now you can give them all +2/+0 and first strike. Whew. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm gonna give this card a 6.5. If somebody does make Vampire Tribal, this goes in it. 4 copies go in this. All right, moving on to Alpine Grizzly. Oh, it's another vanilla card. For 2 and a green, you get a 4/2 bear. That's not right. That's not what bears... That's not the power that bears are supposed to have. This is too big. It's from Khans of Tarkir, so this probably would have worked really well with the Ferocious mechanic. I think, yeah, Ferocious, that's what it's called. Where you have to have a creature with power 4 or greater, and then you get a bunch of effects. So, hey, it's a vanilla creature with power 4 or greater. And it costs you a little bit less than what 4 power generally costs you. So, okay. But it also is pretty easy to take out with just the 2 toughness. I'm going to give it a 1.2, I think. And also, I got to make another mark for vanilla. And hey, 20th card. On to 21, it's Seal of Fire. For a single red mana, you get an enchantment that says sacrifice this enchantment. It deals 2 damage to any target. So we've seen some of these in the past. These seals. We did a Seal of Cleansing, I believe, before. And that one is like a disenchant effect. This one is obviously like a shock effect. But it's just turning those classic kind of spells into enchantments. And now you can play it in some kind of enchantressy kind of deck. I don't think red really has an enchantressy kind of deck. And as a burn card, it's fine, but it's just kind of worse shock. And shock isn't really even played in Pauper because Lightning Bolt's in Pauper and Chain Lightning's in Pauper. You have enough burn spells that 2 damage for a single mana is honestly not enough, and that's kind of wild. Isn't that wild that Pauper can just do something that crazy where it goes, yeah, Lightning Bolt's fine in this format, whereas in standard Lightning Bolt would be a menace. Let's go ahead and give this I'm still gonna give it like a 3.1. Yeah, it's 1 mana for 2 damage. If you do have something that's messing around with enchantments or gives you benefits when enchantments get played or enchantments go to the graveyard, this could do some cool stuff. It's a neat card. I think all the seals are pretty good, just not great. Shriekhorn is a single mana for an artifact, and this artifact enters with 3 charge counters on it. You can tap it and remove a charge counter from this artifact, and target player mills 2 cards. So you get a cheaper millstone, but it's temporary. But there are a lot of decks, or there are cards in the Pauper format that proliferate, and there are some decks that go around it. A lot of those decks are poison storm kind of decks that are looking to put poison counters on opponents, and then you proliferate those. But you also have the depletion lands that have that, the Pentad Prism. So you have lots of things that come into play with counters on it that you can then proliferate and keep those counters going. And you could do the same thing with this. The problem is that milling in Pauper is possible, but it's not the most. It's not a very, forgive the pun, it's not a very common way to take out your opponents. There are mill decks, but not as many of them. And they're kind of built around pretty specific shells. And those proliferation decks are also built around pretty specific shells, mostly the poison or toxic ones. So this card doesn't really have a home in either one of them. And that means it doesn't really have a home at all. We'll give it a 1.4. Yeah. Veteran Armorer is 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. Other creatures you control get +0/+1. We just saw a soldier not too long ago that was a 2/3, cost 2 white, and it gave your other soldiers +0/+1. So this guy is mostly just better. You can give it to anybody, and what do you lose? You lose 1 point of toughness off of that. But he's a little easier to cast because he's a 1 white pip instead of 2 white pips. But this guy is also a soldier, so maybe they work together. But now you're just making your toughness huge, but your power not so huge. I don't know. I cannot remember what I gave the other guy. I would give this guy just about the same. I think the effect is more or less negligible. I guess he's better because he works on non-soldiers, and so he could go in more decks, but it's not great. It's not great. Let's say I'm just gonna give him a 2. I don't remember what I gave the other guy. If I gave it better or worse than a 2, think this is maybe 0.1 better, maybe 0.2 better. Summon Fat Chocobo, hell yeah. 4 and a green for a 4/4 enchantment creature, Saga Bird. As this saga enters, and after your draw step, you add a lore counter, and you sacrifice this saga creature enchantment guy after it hits 4, after it gets its 4th lore counter. So on the first mode, or first counter, you get the first thing here, which is Wark. And that creates a 2/2 green bird creature token with whenever a land you control enters, this token gets +1/+0 until end of turn. That is the Final Fantasy Chocobo bird token. They put them all over Final Fantasy, and that's okay. So you're on the first turn, you're paying 5 mana and you're getting 6/6 worth of stats over 2 bodies, but that's not too bad. And then for lore counters 2, 3, and 4, you get Kerplunk, which says creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. So that's also pretty good. Giving all your creatures trample is nice. This thing's a 4/4, so it'll have trample when it gets to attack on turn 2 and turn 3. On turn 4, since this happens after your draw step, you'll put the lore counter on it. You'll give trample to all your guys, and then this guy will die, so he won't get to attack on the 4th turn. So you get a 4/4 for a couple turns that tramples, and that's okay. And you've also got your 2/2 bird, which will trample, and if you keep playing lands, then it's a 3/2 bird, or potentially even a 4/2 or higher, depending on the land shenanigans you have in your deck, if you have any at all. But also, all your other creatures have now gotten bigger and or potentially have gotten bigger, or they were big to begin with, and they have trample as well, and that's all right. Summon Chocomog generally is the better one of these, and that's in white. That's better for go wide decks, but this is not too bad. It just costs a decent amount, and I think for 5 mana you just find better cards. Avenging Hunter costs 5 mana, and you play that over this pretty much every time. You'd take a 5/4 trampler that gives you the initiative, I would say, definitely before Fat Chocobo. But Fat Chocobo's not too bad. Not too bad. And so we'll give it I'm going to give it a 3.2. So Kenzan Spellblade is 4 and a red. Why was I ran through all the different colors in my head. Red was the last one for some reason. 4 and a red for a 2/3 Ogre Samurai Shaman with Bushido 1. Hell yeah. Bushido 1 says whenever this creature blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It also has, for 1 and a red, this creature gets +X/+0 until the end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. From Saviors of Kamigawa, that set really cared about the number of cards in your hand, and this card shows why. 5 mana. Kamigawa famously had some really bad creatures, some really bad rates on their creatures, and this one is a pretty good illustration of that kind of problem. You're paying 5 mana for a 2/3. Now, it does have Bushido 1, so if it blocks or becomes blocked, it's like you got a 3/4. That's still pretty bad for 5 mana. And then you have to put in even more mana to get kind of a fire-breathing effect. And potentially that's a strong effect. You get quite a bit of power out of that, potentially. But to get the most power out of it, that means you have to keep the cards in your hand. You can't play those cards. I don't know. Does red really want to hang on to a bunch of cards in their hand? Not really. Not really. Now, once you've put this effect on your creature, it doesn't. It only checks the number of cards. I believe it only checks the number of cards when you use the ability. So, right? Yeah. Right. So if you had 5 cards in your hand, you paid this ability, you get +5/+0, and then you can still play those cards. Like if lightning bolts or in other instant speed things, and I don't think it actually takes the power down. And there's no rules clarification here, so I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I'm pretty sure. I guess I'm not guaranteed sure though. Either way, this card's not very good, so don't stress about it too much. I'm gonna stop stressing about it. I'm just gonna give it a 1.7, and I'm gonna keep on going. Actually, the first thing I'm gonna do, because that is gonna annoy me all night, is I'm gonna change whatever light show's going on back there. Why is it doing that? Just this. That's the one I want. Smooth transitions. That one's fine. That blinking stuff. No way. All right. That was card 25. We're on to Converter Beast. For 3 and a green, you get a 0/1 Phyrexian Beast. When this creature enters, you incubate 5. So, you pay 4 mana for a 0/1. That sounds terrible. But you do incubate 5, which means you get a incubation token that gets 5 +1/+1 counters on it, and then you can pay another 2 and transform that token into a 0/0 Phyrexian artifact creature. And so it's a 5/5 creature, unless you proliferate on it or add more counters to it, which you possibly can do as well. So it's 4 mana for a 5/6 of stats, kind of, because you do have to pay that other 2 or find another way to transform it. And there are some other ways to transform things. So now it's like 6 mana for a 5/6. That's not very good. It is a beast. That can be useful in Pauper. I think there are enough beasts that you wouldn't play this one. There's just some better beasts out there. And I don't know. I guess you could blink this guy or bounce this guy back to your hand and then get more of those 5/5 tokens. But then you gotta, if you're bouncing it back to your hand, you gotta find another 4 mana to play it again, and another 2 mana to transform that token. Blinking it would be better, but I think you could just do better blink stuff. You have better blink targets out there than trying to shovel this into your deck. So don't do that. Let's give this guy a 2.4. Filja. Filja is a single white mana for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. This aura enters with 4 healing counters on it. You can remove a healing counter from this aura and prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to enchanted creature this turn. You can also pay 2 and a white to put a healing counter on this aura. That sucks. That just sucks, doesn't it? I mean, on one hand, it's better than a healing salve. That only prevents 3 damage. Well, it's not. It's not better than a healing salve, because a healing salve can also just gain you 3 life for a single white mana. So in that way, it's healing salve is probably better. But this could prevent you. You could make this work if you only need to prevent 1 damage or 1 or 2 damage a turn to be able to, stop your opponent's big creature or something. Turning chump blocks into good trades or trades into good chump blocks, things like that. That's interesting, right? With proliferate effects, you could put more healing counters on this thing without having to pay the exorbitant cost that that this card allows you to do itself. Fun art. I'm running out of things to say about this card. It's bad. It's bad. I'm gonna read this this not errata text exactly, but I want to read the text that's over here. Usually these are about erratas, but this was one of 2 white cards included in a magazine as an early preview promotional card for Ice Age in 1995. Because it was printed before the new white mana symbol was ready, it was laid out with the original, and the same layout was used for printing the version in the set. I see. So it has the older symbol on it. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I would love to see somebody play this card and make it work. I don't want somebody to just play it and go, hey, I wasted a slot in my deck. I want to see somebody play this with proliferation and put a bunch of stuff on their creature and have you go, well, I can't lightning bolt this thing. You'll just remove the counters. I can't attack into this guy. You'll just remove the counters and prevent some damage, and then it won't be a good attack. That's cool. That's some really cool old school garbage magic, but it's not good if you're wanting to win matches, I suppose. Let's give it a 1.3, I guess. Did I already give it a score? Who knows, but it's not good. Don't play that card. Prismatic Circle is 2 and a white for an enchantment with cumulative upkeep 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an age counter on this permanent, then sacrifice it unless you pay its upkeep cost for each age counter on it. We'll talk about cumulative upkeep in a second. As this enchantment enters, you choose a color, and you can pay 1, and the next time a source of your choice of the chosen color would deal damage to you, this turn prevent that damage. So it's kind of like a Circle of Protection, but a little bit more limited. The cumulative upkeep, I think a lot of people really hate cumulative upkeep cards, and I understand why. It's a card that doesn't last, but Summon Fat Chocobo also doesn't last, and it does a pretty cool effect, and then it goes away. So you get your nice effect, and then it goes away, and sure, you got your value out of the card. And I think a lot of people are just worried they don't get the value out of the card, and then they wasted some mana, and they have to continue spending mana, and they really don't want to feel like they are, putting more into what's like a sunk cost fallacy kind of thing of cumulative upkeep costs, and is that worth it? I think those cards, I'm not going to say are always worth it. I don't know if this one is necessarily worth it, but I think those cards are better than a lot of people give them credit for, and they could be useful. I don't know how many are at common that really move the needle for any real decks, but I don't know. You see the value out of something like this. You can, if your opponent's in a monocolor deck, you can blank a lot of their creatures. That's not bad. That's not terrible. But I don't think the card's all that good. I'm going to give it a 2 and keep on going. To Guardian Automaton. For 4 mana, you get a 3/3 artifact creature construct. When this creature dies, you gain 3 life. That's just clean, normal magic. And it's not good. It's not good enough for the format we have now. It's too, the rate's not very good. It's okay when you consider that this is a colorless card and that any deck can play it, but the rate generally is not that great. It's basically a vanilla creature when it's alive. When it dies, you gain a few life. Okay, but how does this really help your game plan in Pauper? Like, what is this doing to synergize with some other kind of effect that you have in your deck? Where is that pushing things? And I don't think this card really does push things anywhere. If anything, it slows things down. It's a halfway decent body, so it can block stuff from your opponent. Maybe your opponent doesn't swing in. And when they do swing in and they know they can kill this thing and you let it die, you gain a few life, so you keep in the game. Maybe that's okay if you're trying to build some kind of deck that goes way into the late game. But if that's the case, I think there are just cheaper creatures that do similar kinds of things and stall the board better than this guy. So he's a real disappointment to all comers. Let's go with a 1.4. Moving on to card number 30. Wow, we're really getting through this. Trustworthy Scout is 1 and a white for a 2/2 human scout. You can pay 1 and a white to exile this card from your graveyard and search your library for a card named Trustworthy Scout, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. I feel like they're really just trying to continue making Squadron Hawks that are not as good as Squadron Hawks. Fix Squadron Hawks, right? And the problem is, you don't have to fix Squadron Hawks. Squadron Hawk's perfect. It's a fantastic card, and it's not necessary. Not necessary to fix what don't need fixing. So yes, you see how Squadron Hawk, you just can go and search up the guy. You can search up all of them, put them into your hand. You can do really neat combos. That's why it's a whole deck type is around this, Coggates. There's no Trustworthy Scout decks. Or no decks that are built around Trustworthy Scout. Now, is it cool that you do have the ability to put out a guy, he dies, now you can go just tutor up that guy again. You can put that guy back down. Yeah, it's kind of cool. But now it becomes like you paid 4 mana for this guy to come back out. That's not very good. Two to get the guy to exile the card and get the guy out of your library in the first place, and another 2 to play him. And then so you have to pay 2 initially, then 4 for the next one, then 4 for the next one, then 4 for the next one. That's bad. I would say that's bad for a 2/2. Not very good. Better than a Grizzly Bear, but not very good. Let's go for just to be fun, let's give it a 2.2. Moving on to Street Savvy. For a single green mana, you get an enchantment aura that says enchant a creature, and enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and can block creatures with landwalk abilities as though they didn't have those abilities. From Dissension, you got to ask yourself, how much landwalk is there in the Pauper format right now? And I would say extremely little. Almost none. And when that's the case, this card's bad. Great art. Kev Walker. Classic. But this is not a very good Pauper card. I'll give it a 1. Oh, don't slow me down now. Beetle-Headed Merchants is 4 and a black for a 5/4 human citizen. Whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Sounds pretty good. Sounds like there's a lot of good stuff. The problem is the mana cost and the power and toughness, because it's requiring the mana cost to be so high. I think this is a pretty solid card that could go pretty nicely into mono black sacrifice decks, but when it costs 5 mana to put this guy on the table, then you got to wait a whole turn for it to come back around to you, and then now you can finally do your attack. And once you do your attack, it's great. You sacrifice your Infestation Sage, you get to draw a card, you put a 1 counter on this guy, so he's really a 6/5. That's awesome. no issues with that. It's also a May ability, so you don't have to sacrifice a guy. So he's not going to have to sacrifice himself or anything if you try to attack with him. It could just be a halfway decent attacker, but it also potentially gives you turn over turn value. And that's nice. But the mono black sacrifice decks play their carrion feeders, they play their Gixian infiltrators, they play their mortician beetles, and they're fine without this guy. And where does this guy go if he can't go in mono black sacrifice? I don't know. I don't think he goes anywhere. Let's give him a... I'm going to give him a 2.4. I feel like 2.5 is the mark where it really says, like, okay, these cards are... Yeah, I would say anything like 2.5, 2.4 and below is like, this is kind of unplayable trash, right? It's just the degree of how unplayable trash it is. And anything like between a 2.5 and a 4.5, I would say is, oh, that's interesting. And then 4.5 to 5 is like, oh, this is like basically there. It's so close to being playable in Pauper. And then 5 and above is something that is playable or played in Pauper, and how good it is based on that. And I think you could pretty strongly criticize the way I do that. And this is wasting time, I realize that. But I think you could criticize this show and the scoring system by going, wow, so you barely give anything above a 5. There's so few cards in the grand scheme of things that are played in the Pauper format or could be played in the Pauper format. And so you're kind of just cutting the list in half, or cutting your scoring system in half. I think that's fair, but I also want to be able to give you the gradations of how good a card can be. You know, how much better is a brainstorm than, I don't know, a Gixian infiltrator. Both of those cards are above a 5 for sure, but brainstorm's like a 9.5. We've had brainstorm before. I might have given it something like 9.5. And mortician beetle's like a, I don't know, or a Gixian infiltrator, I mean, is like a, I don't know, it's like a 6.5. And I want to be able to show that there's a big gap between those cards, even though they are both quote unquote playable in Pauper. Anyway, that is not helping us get down this list any faster. Let's keep going to Boiler Bilge's Ripper. For 4 and a red, you get a 4/4 human assassin. When this creature enters, you may sacrifice another creature or enchantment. When you do, this creature deals 2 damage to any target. So you get a shock and you get a 4/4 body, but you have to sacrifice something first. It's not awesome, is it? It's not all that good. Yeah, it's not all that good. Let's go ahead and give it a 2.3 and move on. Dinrova Horror is 4 and Demir, which is a blue and a black. You get a 4/4 horror creature, and when this creature enters, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Then that player discards a card. It's a recoil. Ah, hell yeah. It's a recoil. Look at that. Return target permanent to its owner's hand, and that player discards a card. It's also, well, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's like one of my favorite cards of all time, Blizzard Spectre, which can return a permanent to its controller's hand, or player discards a card. In fact, I wrote to Mark Rosewater on Tumblr, on Blogatog, and it was my birthday trivia day, and I wanted him to just tell me anything he could about one of my favorite cards, which is Blizzard Spectre. And he mentioned how Blizzard Spectre was kind of finding a way of making a card that was like recoil, but into a creature. And so they kind of did that, but then they did that even more with this one. So Dinrova Horror is all right. I mean, 6 mana for a 4/4 is not awesome, but 6 mana. Consider that recoil costs 3. Then it's like you're only paying 3 for the 4/4, and then you also cast recoil. Now it seems like a pretty good deal. It still costs a lot. It costs quite a bit to get this thing on the table in the first place. But cool blink target. Yeah, I don't. Dimir is not really known for getting a ton of mana out all that quick, so I don't think it's all that good. Your Dimir stuff wants to generally stay pretty small, or it wants to have some kind of cost reducers. Like you can play the your Dimir Terror or like Dimir Gurmag Angler stuff, and those can reduce those costs. So you get big creatures, but they are not costing you big mana in the way that this guy does. I like the effects. I like the creature generally, but I can't give it anything all that good. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 because I was just talking about my kind of scoring scale, and I think that tells you kind of what I think about this card. Precipitous Drop is 2 and a black for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. When this aura enters, venture into the dungeon. Okay. An enchanted creature gets -2/-2, and it gets -5/-5 as long as you completed a dungeon. Dungeons are interesting. We talk about. I talked about a card like Avenging Hunter, but there are other cards out there that can give you the initiative. In fact, some of them are even banned in Pauper because having the initiative is really good. The initiative is a little bit different because you go into the Undercity, which is a specific dungeon. It's really big. It has a lot of nice effects on it. These other dungeons are not so great. They're fine. For Dungeon of the Mad Mage, you gain a life, you scry, you choose getting a treasure token, or target creature can't attack until your next turn. Like, you're getting halfway decent value. It's just not incredible value like it is when you're in the Undercity. Lost Mine of Fandelver, this one's pretty quick to get through, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. It's costs you 4 times through, and then you're through. But scry 1, make a goblin or make a treasure. Like, you get halfway decent stuff with this one too. Tomb of Annihilation is the one that's probably played the least because it's all bad stuff for both you and your opponent. But you get through it really quickly. You can get through it with just 3 turns. So you can complete the dungeon faster, and then you get the -5/-5 with Precipitous Drop, and that's pretty cool. But you also have to lose a life, discard a card, sacrifice an artifact creature, and a land. Whew, bad. And then you get the cool thing at the end for that. But the other thing is, if you already have the initiative and you're already in the Undercity, venturing into the dungeon will just continue down that dungeon. You can't start in the Undercity by venturing into the dungeon, but you can continue when you venture into the dungeon. So, I don't know. Ultimately, this is a 3 mana -2/-2, and that's not very good. It's a 3 mana dead weight, and that is kind of just what the card is. But venturing into the dungeons, not too bad. It's kind of like 3 mana for a dead weight and a life gain, and a scry, or both players lose a life. So you get a little bit more out of it, and then you keep the dungeon thing going. I still think 3 mana is a lot to ask, and having to get through a handful of turns to get the dungeon completed, only to give the creature -5/-5 at that point is pretty rough. Now, if you've already gone through the dungeon, this is a 3 mana -5/-5, and that sounds a little bit better. But I think it really just is a lot of mess, a lot of stuff going around. Also, I have done my hash marks in a bad way where I cannot tell if I've done 5 or not. I don't think I have. We might end up doing 101 cards. Who knows? Let's keep going. Serrated Arrows. Ooh, Serrated Arrows. Classic card. The story behind these is that I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure this is how it works. Is that in some early Magic, some of the tournaments would say you had to have at least 1 card from every set that was out at that point. And this originally came from Homelands. Yeah, Homelands. And Homelands, not a very good set. So some people would put one of these in their sideboard because they had to have some Homelands representation. And this was one of the least offensive Homelands cards you could play. Any deck could play it. So it had some kind of effect. But let's see what it's like in Pauper. Who knows? Maybe this is a Pauper All-Star. Serrated Arrows is 4 mana for an artifact. This artifact enters with 3 arrowhead counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are no arrowhead counters on this artifact, you sacrifice it. And you can tap and remove an arrowhead counter from this artifact to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. We talked about the proliferate decks that could keep making their creatures smaller time and time again. That's kind of cool. But those decks don't need this because they are just going to proliferate those toxic, those poison counters. And who cares about creatures? We're going to kill you faster than that. So it's not good. It's not really played anywhere. And I don't really think it should be. But it's a classic card with some history behind it, and for that I like it. It's a time-shifted card. I have a copy of the time-shifted one. Ooh, a whole 26 cents in my pocket. How about that? Because it is so classic. And Time Spiral specifically was like, well, let's bring back some really classic cards in the time-shifted stuff, and that's where Serrated Arrow comes from. Yeah, where do you give it score-wise? I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's give it a 2.1. Yeah. On to Fugitive Wizard. Ooh, another vanilla guy. It's been a little bit. It's a single blue mana for a 1/1. That's it. It is a human wizard, so humans and wizards, that can help. But, for 1 mana, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you could play Slitherblade. Can't be blocked. It's an extra point of toughness. Same cost. Much better. You could play all sorts of different fairies. Fairy decks do. There's just so many other good 1-drops that you play that you'd never play this. The original Legions art is awesome. I do like the original Legions art, but it's not a good card. I'm gonna give it a 1. I'll give it a 1.1. No, I won't. I wanted to give it 1.1 for the meme. For the power and toughness, but no. This is actually a 1. There's so many other cards you play instead of this. Don't play Fugitive Wizard. War Mammoth, however, oh boy, War Mammoth is 3 and a green for a 3/3 elephant with trample. Is this an alpha card? Yeah, this is from the very beginning, baby. You can buy an alpha War Mammoth for $15. As long as we're telling stories, the professor mentioned that he had a deck at one point when he was first learning Magic. That I think his deck was just was it just like a bunch of forests and War Mammoth, or was it a bunch of forests and a bunch of mountains and then War Mammoth and lightning bolts? It was one of those two. But I remember him talking about how, he didn't know that you could only have 4 copies of a card. And so in your deck at once, that was the max for constructed formats. And so his thought process was, well, what's better than War Mammoth? It's a 3/3 with trample. Who's going to stop that? I'll just keep playing War Mammoths every single turn. What are they going to do? And then somebody had to say, hey, you can only have 4 of those in your deck. And when you can only have 4, this becomes a lot worse. I think it's pretty bad even when you can have unlimited copies, but certainly when you can only play 4. Still a fun story, and it does kind of help to remind you why some of these rules of Magic exist. If you could just play a deck with all lightning bolts, you'd probably do okay. Yeah, maybe. War Mammoth, not a good card, but man, what a classic! What a classic, right? I'm gonna give War Mammoth a 1.7. Esper Sojourners is Esper colors, as you might imagine. White, blue, and black for a 2/3 artifact creature, Vidalcan Wizard. When you cycle this card, and when this creature dies, you may tap or untap target permanent. And it has cycling, which you might have expected because the card mentioned it. It cycles for 2 and a blue, which means you discard this card and you draw a card. Cool to have. I like creatures that do things when they cycle, or cards that do things when they cycle. That's a cool ability. So you still feel like you're getting a little bit of value, even though you're just doing the cycle thing. And the cycle thing's already pretty good. You're discarding a card to draw a card. That's okay. That's okay already. Which is why a lot of cycling cards don't do anything but cycle. But I can appreciate when a card says, well, we're going to give you like a little bit of value if you cycle it, but you get the big value if you actually play it. This is a 2/3 for 3 mana, and each of those mana has to be a different color. That's asking a lot. And is the ability all that good? Not really. Tap or untap target permanent. And when this creature dies, that doesn't get... So the creature part says when this creature dies, you get to do that thing. I don't think that's very good when you have a little bit less agency on when that creature dies. You know, maybe you have agency if you can sacrifice it. Maybe you have agency when you know that you can block an opponent's card or opponent's creature, so you know it's going to get blocked at that point, or you know it's going to die because of, you know, chumping with it or something like that. So that can give you some of that, but your opponent can also lightning bolt this. And if they lightning bolt this, well, you got to choose what to tap right now. And maybe your opponent has put themselves in a position where they don't care if you tap anything of theirs. And maybe you don't have anything good to untap, or maybe it's a bad time for you to untap something, because you don't get to get the extra value out of it that you'd want if it was in, you know, one of your main phases or something. So I don't love this card for a lot of reasons, even though I do like the cycling and the extra ability on the cycling. The mana cost is really the big killer, though. I get that it's an Esper card. We want to show that it's all 3 colors, but I think if you're going to make something cost all 3 different colors of Esper mana, it's got to do something pretty good. You know, I'm just going to keep clicking on stuff. Dovin's Veto, is that it? No, Dovin's Veto is only Azorius. I can't... Void Rend, that's the one I'm thinking. Void Rend. Not Void. Void Rend. Void Rend. Void Rend. Void Rend is Esper mana. Can't be countered, destroy target non-land permanent. That's all. At instant speed, that's a card. Now, it's rare, obviously, but, you know, that's what Esper mana can get you. Or it can get you this. I know which one I'd rather have. What are we going to give it? We're going to give it a 1.3. I really don't like this. And the mana cost is the big reason why. Night Squad Commando is 2 and a black for a 2/3 human soldier. When this creature enters, if you attacked this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. It's also a soldier, so you do kind of get 2 soldiers out of the deal. That can be kind of cool. We've seen some other soldier synergy stuff. I don't think soldiers usually plays black, but if it did, this puts 2 of them down. And it also kind of has pseudo raid. You know, raid's an ability or a mechanic that some other Magic sets have had. That I think that comes from Tarkir, right? That's a Mardu thing. But if you've attacked that turn, playing creatures or playing cards get extra value because you've attacked. So it encourages attacks, which is really nice. And I think this card is also a nice teaching moment for newer Magic players to go, well, this thing gets extra value if I attack, so I better make an attack, even if it's not maybe the I know that one of my creatures is going to die. I don't want my creatures to die. But now you're thinking, but think of the extra value I get by attacking. Like, I have more incentive to attack now. Okay, that's cool. And now you get people going, hey, maybe I don't even need the carrot, right? I can just attack because I know something good happens when I attack. Damage happens to the opponent. You should do that. That's all for new players. For Pauper players, no, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. 3 mana for a 2/3 and another 1/1. So 3 mana for a 3/4. That's halfway decent from the rate standpoint. But it's basically a vanilla creature. It makes another vanilla creature. It is somewhat conditional. You did have to attack, so there's times where you don't have a creature on the board, so you can't attack with anything to be able to get the extra value out of this. And if you play it as a 3 mana 2/3, I think you got suckered in. So don't do that. I just wouldn't play this card at all, and that would fix it for me. Let's go ahead and give this a 2.1. Shell Shield is easy to say. Single blue mana for an instant with kicker 1. You can pay an additional 1 as you cast the spell. Target creature you control gets +0/+3 until end of turn. If this spell was kicked, that creature also gained hexproof until end of turn. I'd want it the other way around. I'd want the hexproof first, and then the kicker to potentially give it the extra stats. Because we've seen, it wasn't too long ago we saw Mizium skin, right? Mizium skin, which is not the same, but it does give you a toughness boost and hexproof for a single creature for a single mana. This one can go to your whole team, which I would say is better. But, +3 toughness can allow a really important creature to live through something. It can stop a lightning bolt. And for an extra mana, it can doubly stop a lightning bolt in that you have hexproof on your guy. Ultimately, I think there's just enough other blue protection spells that are better than this one, and I would play those over this one. And so let's give this thing a 1.9. Giant Albatross. Have we done Giant Albatross? I know I've looked at this art somewhat recently, but I don't know if it was for this or for something else. Let's just do it. Giant Albatross is 1 and a blue for a 1/1 bird with flying. When this creature dies, you can pay 1 and a blue. If you do, for each creature that dealt damage to this creature this turn, destroy that creature unless its controller pays 2 life. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. That is a lot. So this is an interesting blocker. It's not so much I guess it could be an attacker, but more often than not, you want to, I don't know. It just kind of sucks, doesn't it? Because the idea here is that I suppose if you powered this up more, you turn this from being a 1/1 into a 4/4 somehow. There's lots of ways of doing that. You swung in and your opponent double blocks to try to chump and kill this thing. Like double block, but to kill. And now you can pay a couple of mana and force them to pay life. It's so convoluted, and it just kind of doesn't matter. You're just paying 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer. And there's a lot of 1/1 flyers you can play for 1 blue mana. You don't have to do this. you don't have to go through all this and think about this card at all. Art's fantastic for sure. The card itself not very good. Also, not very giant. Not much of a giant albatross. If it's only a 1/1. This big bird. Like look at the scale here. Big bird. Only a 1/1? Get out of here. What's the other art look like? Nah, the other art's so much worse. So much worse. This David A. Cherry art, that's the art you want. But you don't want this card at all. This is a 1. Man. It would be the art of the day of any other episode of Common Knowledge, but we've got 100 of these things, so we got to keep on going. Liquefy is 2 and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell with mana value 3 or less. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. 3 mana counter spells are not the best. 2 mana counter spells in Pauper are honestly getting phased out quite a bit. If you're not Spell Pierce or Abjure or Envelop or Force Spike, there's so many single mana counter spells that are doing a bunch of blue elemental blast and red elemental blast, those kind of things. Those are getting more and more play as the format just continues to speed up. Whereas 2 mana counter spells, you still play counterspell, you still see people play counterspell, and it's still pretty good, and it gets used, and it's a great card. When counterspell comes up, we'll have that big conversation. But 3 mana counter spells, you can play Cancel, which is just counterspell but with extra mana. This is worse than a Cancel. It only goes on to certain mana values, and a lot of the mana values you see will be pretty cheap generally. So this can counter those, and it's nice that it exiles it instead of going to the graveyard. You can get rid of a card completely, but there's also a lot of big spells that get played in Pauper. Maybe they're cost reduced, but you can play a lot of big spells, and this does nothing against them. And that's not very good. I don't think this card's very good generally. I'm going to give this a 2. Feels too high, but I'll still give it a 2. Nyxborn Unicorn is 1 and a white for a 2/2 enchantment creature unicorn. Have we done this one? I know we did a bestow creature. We might have done this one before. I'll read it anyway. It's fine. Nyxborn Unicorn, 1 and a white for a 2/2 unicorn, enchantment creature unicorn. Has bestow for 3 and a white. If you cast this card for its bestow cost, it's an aura spell with enchant creature, and it becomes a creature again if it's not attached. And it's got mentor. Whenever this creature attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. And when this thing is an enchantment aura, enchanted creature would get +2/+2 and mentor. So the creature just kind of gets the stats and abilities of this guy, and then if that creature dies, if you bestowed it, but if that creature that you bestowed it on dies, then this thing just becomes a creature, and now it's a 2/2 with mentor. So you can do something with that. You'll probably get more mentor triggers if you bestow this onto something else because it's bigger now, so it's probably bigger than your other guys. So you can go in and get those extra counters. That's kind of cool. Because when this guy's just a 2/2 with mentor himself, he's probably not putting a bunch of counters on many creatures. Only the things with 0 or 1 power. As cool as it is to kind of get double cards, this is a kind of a form of card advantage too. This card's just not all that great. You'll see the Nyxborn Hydra also from Modern Horizons 3, and that one is played in Pauper all the time because it's a really good card, and it's costed in a way that it's a really good card. And this one's just not. Modern Horizons 3 did, depending on how you look at it, it either did a lot of good or it did a lot of bad for Pauper. Maybe both, honestly. And this card is not one of the reasons why. Either way. So, doesn't get played. Probably doesn't need to get played. I'm going to give it a... I mean, it is still modal in a way, right? Like, if you get it early, you can play it as a 2/2, as a grizzly bear with mentor. That's kind of nice. But then also, if it's later in the game, you pump up a big creature and then get more stats. That's okay too. I'll give it a 2.4, I guess. And we'll go on to... Ooh, yes! One of my favorite arts of all time. A card that I love a lot, but not a card that I really play. Daunting Defenders, 4 and a white for a 3/3 human cleric. If a source would deal damage to a cleric creature you control, prevent 1 of that damage. This thing lives through a lightning bolt. That's kind of cool. 5 mana for a 3/3 is not very good. But when you consider if you're playing a deck that is mostly clerics, now the damage prevention on this can be big. If somebody tries to double block this guy, both those creatures lose out on damage when they try to hit this because they're 2 different sources. That's cool, and you can have other clerics do the same thing. It makes blocking hard. It makes attacking hard because this guy just does funky stuff to the combat math. I like him. I really like this card because I had a foil of I still do. I have a foil of this, and I think it was like one of the first foils I had really gotten, and I think the Onslaught foils look gorgeous. It's just the border that's foiled. It's just this white part here that's foil. So this art stays matte, stays flat like it is. The text box is easy to read because it's also flat. It's just this nice shiny border, and it looks awesome. The frame looks so good on that. I really hate foils these days. Foils look terrible today because it's the whole thing's foil, and you can't see the card, you can't see what the card is anymore. I hate them. They all pringle up. They look terrible. Then you need to go, Wizards. If I can ask for one thing, it would not be about foils. But if I can ask for another thing, it'd be really cool to go back to this old style of foiling. I think they did it for was it Modern Horizons 3, or like there's some where it's like the retro frames had the foiling the old way and they looked really good. But yeah, just the general new foiling where we just foil the whole front of it and just the whole thing looks like a holographic mess. Gross. I hate those cards. I really hate those cards. Back to this, though. What do we give Daunting Defender? It's not good. I love it, but it's not good. I'm going to give it a 2.6 because I think if you do get it on the table, if you are playing with a bunch of clerics or even changeling stuff, you can make things weird. And I like making things weird. But it's just generally not an amazing card. All right, I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to go back and start counting where I'm at, because I've made a lot of hash marks on here, but I don't really know what they do. Hey, it's a Lorwyn Eclipse card. We've recently done this because I went through all the Lorwyn Eclipse cards. Do I count those as doing them for common knowledge, though? I guess not. It wasn't officially done in a common knowledge episode. It was done in its own separate thing. So we'll re-rate this one. Summit Sentinel is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 elemental soldier. When this creature dies, you draw a card. That's okay. It's okay. The problem is, put this next to Outlaw Medic, which is 1 and a white for a 1/3, and when this creature dies, you draw a card. But it also has lifelink. That gives it a space. That gives it a niche where you play it in Caw Gates. You know, a cheap lifelinker that also draws you a card. So if your opponent tries to target this thing, at least you get a little value out of the deal. But has lifelink, can make a big swing. This guy can't do that. He's just the value part, and that's okay. But it doesn't make it good. It's an okay card. It's not a good card, and that's. Pauper forces you to play good cards. You can't really play mediocre cards. So we'll give this I'm still gonna give it a 2.3, but it's not very good. All right, let's do some counts here. I think 10, 20, 30, 40, 45. I think that's 45. We're almost halfway there. Ancient Brontodon. Oh, another vanilla card. Hell yeah. 6 and double green for a 9/9 dinosaur. That's a big boy there. It's not very good, though. 8 mana for 9/9. You know, the rate's kind of there. But for 8 mana, you want to win the game, right? You want to do something that really... if it doesn't win you the game on the spot, it should pretty much put you in the seat to win the game. And a 9/9 vanilla guy doesn't do that. Your opponent can chump block this thing all day long. They can kill this thing with any sort of removal they've got. I mean, not any sort. Lightning bolts doesn't kill this thing, but 9/9 with no extra stats, with no extra evasion on it, just kills the thing dead. So dead. It needs trample. It requires trample to make this a whiff of playable. And even then, it's not really playable. Play Colossal Dreadmaw instead. That's a big creature with trample. Don't play this. Okay. Did I give it a score? I don't think so. I didn't mark it down. So, I don't know. 1.4. Seems wild to give a 9/9 a 1.4, but that's what it is. Rapid Flames, 3 and a red for a sorcery. Rapid Flames deals 1 damage to each of up to 3 target creatures. Those creatures can't block this turn. Interesting. So, you play this against something like the Fairies deck, pop 3 Fairies. Great. Don't mind that. Or even one of the Moon Circuit Hacker, the ninjas that only has 1 toughness. Pop a couple of those. Great. You play this against big guys. You don't kill them, but they can't block. So now you swing in unimpeded. That's kind of cool. This costs a little too much for what it does. You know, if you're trying to sweep the board, there's just straight up sweepers. You know, End the Festivities is a single red mana that deals a damage to all your opponent's creatures. That clears up the fairies a lot better. There are cheaper ways of making all creatures not be able to block that your opponent has. In red, like there's ones that creatures without flying can't block. There's a lot of those effects in red. And I think you'd play either of those cards and probably not even the not being able to block stuff. Probably just the board wipe ones. But you'd play those before you play this. It's nice that it has a couple of modes on it. Not even really a couple of modes, but it just does a couple of things. So it kind of acts like 2 different modes, whether the creature dies or whether the creature lives. But ultimately, I'm going to give it a 1.8. Mana cost is also really high. Don't like that. Trove Tracker is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human pirate. When this creature dies, you draw a card. Sounds kind of familiar from cards we've done recently. It also has Encore for 5 and double blue. So paying that cost, exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent at this turn if able. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. From a commander set, Commander Legends, and you can see why. It's a commander card. You know, the idea is that you can play this early, or probably even better, you just mill this into your graveyard or discard this in some way for better value, because a 3 mana 2/2 that draws you a card when it dies is not awesome. But later in the game, you make 3 2/2s, and you'll draw 3 cards at the end of that. 7 mana to draw 3 cards is not very good, but it's a thing you could do. I wouldn't say this is good in Commander either, but it's a thing you could play in Commander. In Pauper, this thing's terrible because you only have one opponent. So you'd pay 7 mana to get a 2/2 that will draw you 1 more card. Whew, that's overpaying for it twice. And it's double overpaying for it in the Encore version. Yeah, that's real bad. That's real bad. I'm going to give this a 1 for Pauper. Dawn Treader Elk is 1 and a green for a 2/2 elk. You can pay a green and sacrifice this creature to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. That's interesting. You know, you're going for it's kind of like a Steve. It's kind of like a Sakura Tribe Elder, right? It's got another point of power and toughness, but you have to pay to get its ability. I don't know. I think this is actually okay. I'm a little surprised I haven't seen people try to play this card. Not in Pauper, but like Commander. I mean, it's like a 3 mana rampant growth, which feels bad, but it attacks and blocks. I don't know. I'll give it a 2. I think it's interesting. Probably deserves even higher than that. Ooh, Dakmor Scorpion. Get to make another little V for vanilla. Dakmor Scorpion is 1 and a black for a 2/1 Scorpion. That's it. From Portal Second Age, and then got a starter 99. But yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. We're gonna give that a 1. Did I mark that one down? No, I just marked down the V. Did I mark it down? Maybe we're going to do 102 cards. Who knows? Let's keep going. To Essence Scatter. We have talked about Essence Scatter recently, right? Because I talked about Remove Soul and how I like it's the same card, but I just like Remove Soul because it's the classic one. Countering a creature's really good. It's not quite as good, not usually quite as good as countering a non-creature spell, but it is pretty useful. Skipping that one, though, because you've done it before. Might of Marasa is 1 and a green for an instant. It says has kicker 2, or kicker 2 and a green. I'm sorry, in fact. You may pay an additional 2 and a green as you cast a spell. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. If the spell was kicked, that creature gets +5/+5 instead. So 2 mana for a giant growth. It's already bad. But you can also pay, you could instead pay 5 mana and get +5/+5. I don't think that's very good either. Yeah, I think it's pretty bad. Let's give it a 1.4. Art's good. I like the art. That's about it. Deathless Pilot is 1 and a black for a 2/2 zombie pilot. When this creature saddles mounts and cruise vehicle, or this creature saddles mounts and cruise vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. You can also pay 3 and a black to return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. Not a ton of mount or vehicle stuff happening in Pauper. There's some vehicles. There's almost no mounts that I can think of. It's a grizzly bear, generally. Just a 2 mana 2/2. And it's cool that it could cruise something up to 4 on its own. That's nice. I was going to say nice. I was going to say neat. It's nice, you know? It's all right. The most interesting thing is that you can just keep buying this back to your hand and playing it out. So you could, if you had enough mana, you could just keep playing this every single turn, chump block an opponent's guy, pay another 4, bring it back to your hand, play it the next turn. Yeah, it can stop stuff, but now you're just you're putting a lot of mana into it. You're dedicating quite a bit of mana to that plan. And I don't think that's all that great. Let's go for I'm still going to give it like a 2.7 though. I think there could be something to it. All right, I know I did my count, but do I have 50 up here? There's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, so by my count, I'm at 51. I might be a little off, but that helps. That helps, I suppose. I'm on to a new row, so we're on to the second half now. Let's keep going. I still feel fine. My butt hurts. I will say that. My butt hurts a little bit, but we can keep going. Undo is 1 in double blue for a sorcerer. Return 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. Hey, that's a little bit like the first card we got, except it doesn't cost 6, and it can't also have a mode that says draw 3 cards. Originally from Visions, it's gotten a couple other prints. Portal Second Age print's kind of interesting too, but I like this one. Therese Nielsen did I like the art. I'm going to say I like the art. I don't know about the artist. I feel like the artist is not... I feel like I've heard some stuff about Therese Nelson that is not so good. Anyway, stop talking about that. Let's talk about the card. The card is fine, I guess. You really want this to be instant speed. If you're paying for 2 unsummons, but you're paying 3. You're paying 3 times as much as an unsummoned, but you're only getting double the unsummoned value. And that's bad math. That math doesn't work out very well. And it's at sorcery speed instead of instant speed. So, I'm going to give it a... I don't know. It still bounced a couple things. That's kind of cool. But I'm going to give it a 1.9. Urn of Godfire is a single mana for an artifact. You can pay 2 and add 1 mana of any color, or you can pay 6 and tap and sacrifice this artifact to destroy target creature or enchantment. That's interesting. So it's kind of like an energy refractor. Refactor. No, energy refractor. Come on. Oh, with an R, you idiot. Okay, it's kind of like an energy refractor. Costs 1 less than an energy refractor, but it doesn't draw you the card when it comes into play. That could be a bit of a deal breaker. Energy refractor gets used in Tron decks a lot, maybe a little less now that Prophetic Prism's out there, but still, sometimes you're fine converting 2 of your colorless mana because you have Tron mana. You're making tons of mana with your Tron lands. So you can spend a little bit to convert it into something else and make it more useful for you. I'm going to back out through a bunch of those. So this also has that filtering ability, which is nice. But, in Tron, it can also just take out a creature or enchantment. Those are good things to take out. I've never heard anybody talk about this card. And I think it could do well in Tron. The not being able to draw you a card, and you understand why. It costs 1. It costs half of what an energy refractor does. It can't draw you a card. That'd be crazy. And yet, I think I'd probably still play energy refractor over this. And as a person with a Tron deck, I don't play either of those cards. So I just stick to the Prophetic Prism, honestly. Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 4.2. Cool card. Savage Gorger is 1 in double black for a 1/1 vampire with flying. At the beginning of your end step, if an opponent lost life this turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. That's kind of cool. We showed that vampire card, I don't know, 1 billion cards ago, give or take. And giving everything +2/+0 and first strike. You're going to get in some damage, and then this guy gets a little bigger, and then he can get a little bigger. 3 mana for a 1/1 flyer is really bad. I'm not here to say it's good, but if it grows over time, Pauper is generally a format about accruing value over time. That's okay. I'd say it's probably on the lower tier of the vampires you would play in a vampire tribal typal deck. But I'll give him a 2.8. Borderland Marauder is 1 in a red for a 1/2 human warrior. Whenever this creature attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So it's kind of like a 2 mana 3/2. Interesting. Not very good, but it's interesting. I don't really think there's a deck that wants this. But 2 mana 3/2 is pretty respectable stats. For red, anyway. Let's give it a... God, what do I give this? I'm gonna give it a 2. I'm gonna give it a 2. Probably more than it deserves. Gliss's Courier is 1 and double green for a 2/3 Phyrexian Horror with Mountain Walk. I do, we talked a long time ago about the Street Savvy, which gave you the ability to stop Landwalk powers. And I talked about how Landwalk powers are just generally not really played in Pauper. But I will say, of the Landwalk creatures that are out there, I tend to like the ones that have a Landwalk ability that is not their own color. Is it, oh God, I better get this one right. Marsh Boa. Yes, got it right. So a green creature that has Swamp Walk. Here's a green creature that has Mountain Walk. Those, I think, are more interesting than a green creature with Forest Walk. You understand the flavor of why Forest Walk works for green creatures, right? And most of them live in the forest. So the idea that they can sneak through a forest and get in damage, you understand that. But this is cool to stop opposing decks, because you have to be in not exactly a mirror, but you have to be in a green versus green deck or to get the Forest Walk to really work. This, I think, allows you to play this more as a sideboard piece, and it makes a little bit more sense. Not this one exactly. This one's not very good. It's 3 mana for a 2/3 that can do unblockable against red decks. Okay, I guess. Not great. Not great. If it had vigilance, I don't know, maybe because tacking in and then being able to stop afterward. I don't know. I don't know. It's not good. We don't have to talk about this anymore. I'm gonna give it a 1.9. No, I'm gonna give it a 1.7. Hectize is 1 and a black for a 1/1 ooze horror. When this creature enters, each opponent discards a card. We've talked about a lot of these cards in the past. We've had I think it's Ravenous Rats. God, I gotta check. Ravenous Rats. Yep, Ravenous Rats. There's a Nezumi from March of the Machine that does this too. We've talked about the Skullcap Snail from Lost Caverns of Ixalan that exiles a card instead. You know, there's lots of Virus Beetle is an artifact. So there's lots of these kinds of cards, 2-mana guys that come in and make an opponent lose a card out of their hand. Most of them are discard, but that Skullcap is an exile, which I think makes that one better than most of the other ones. The Virus Beetle, we've also talked about that being an artifact. That matters a little bit for affinity style decks and things like that. So that one's a little better than the other ones. The Ravenous Rats is, a pretty normal one, but rat is an interesting creature type that can be useful. There's some rat things that you can do if you're going down that kindred, tribal, typal, whatever the hell you want to call it. If you want to go that route where you're doing a lot of creature type stuff, that's a pretty good creature type. Ooze Horror, not amazing creature types, but it looks cool. It does look cool. From Final Fantasy, so it's a UB card if that matters to you. But I like him. I like him. I won't play him because I'll just play the other ones instead. But I do like him. And if he's the only option you have, he's still not a terrible card. I think it's very negligible how much better Ravenous Rats is above this, and then it's slightly less negligible. Like there's a slightly bigger gap because the Virus Beetle being the artifact does really matter, and then I would say there's another smallish gap between Virus Beetle and Skullcap Snail, with Skullcap Snail exiling these things. And there's other cards in here too that do similar things, but I think this guy is generally on the bottom of that tier list, and but you have to know that that's still a good ability, and you still got to give this guy something like a 2.4. But no, it's even better than that. It's like a 2.6. Like it is a pretty good ability. You just play the better ones instead. Kessig Flame Breather. Have we done this one before? I think we have, but I'm going to do this one anyway because this is a good card. 1 and a red for a 1/3 human shaman. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's just nice. That's just nice. You see this pop up in lots of decks. Lots of burn decks, lots of madness decks can play this guy too. Most red decks can play this guy and have a really good time. It makes all your burn cards that much better. Just keeps popping them. 1/3 is really good stats to potentially even block something from your opponent, or swing in knowing that this thing will still live if your opponent blocks with something they have. It's just good. It's just good. How good? How good is the question? Way above a 5 for sure. Way above a 6, I think for sure. Above a 7. I'm going to give this an 8. Does it deserve more? Maybe. I'm going to give it an 8. Kessig Flame Breather is an 8. That's a really good card. In a lot of decks. You know what? In a lot of decks, too. I'm going to give it an 8.4. Yeah. I think I'm going to give it an 8.4. This is truly one of the best Pauper cards. And you see in its cost. This is a common card, and it costs $3 or $4.50. It's a good card. It just is. It just is. I think what's really bumping it up is that it works in multiple kinds of decks. That's what turns you into a Pauper All-Star, instead of just a staple for a deck. Really good card. Wicked Akuba, not a very good card. And I don't even really know what it does, but I know it's from Champions of Kamigawa, and as much as I love it, I know that set is not very good for its creatures. It's a black for a 2/2 spirit. You can pay a black and target player dealt damage by this creature this turn loses 1 life. Okay. I want to make a case. I want to make a case for it. You're in a mono black deck, and you put this guy down. He's a grizzly bear, 2 mana, 2/2. Not a big deal. But your opponent really feels compelled to block this guy. If you swing in before you've tapped any mana on your next turn, your opponent really feels like they have to block this guy. Because if they don't, now you can put down, let's say you're just hitting your regular land drops. You do 2 damage with this guy. You pay all 3 black mana that you got. All 3 swamps, you tap them, and now they lose another 3 life. That's 5 life lost from a 2 mana guy. That's pretty good. Then next turn, you get to do it again. You get to hold up mana in case your opponent does something, tries to do. And you don't get to hold it up on their turn, which is a bit of a bummer. But you do. I think this card's not bad. I think it's not bad, especially if you're able to give it evasion in some way. If you give it fear or flying, there's ways of doing those things. You could potentially do some cool stuff. It's not good. You're putting a lot of eggs into a single basket that your opponent can very easily wipe this guy out, and then you've lost all those resources. You should probably spend those on something better than this. But I see the vision, and I think it's cool. It's worse. It's worse than the Frozen Shade, right? The Frozen Shade giving the creature +1/+1. That's like doing extra damage when you do the extra damage, but it also makes the chump blocks worse. Like it's better when it attacks in. So all those cards are better than this. But what you could do is you swing in, you deal 2 damage, and now you can at instant speed make them lose some. I don't know. It's I keep trying to make arguments for it. It's still not a very good card. I'm gonna give it like a 1.6, which seems pretty bad, and it is. But this is the kind of card that I love because I want to like it. I want to find ways of making it work. I think there's something interesting about it, but it's not good. It's not good. Razorgrass Screen is a single mana for a 2/1 artifact creature that is a wall. It's got Defender, because all walls have Defender, which means it cannot attack. This creature blocks each combat if able. From 5th Dawn. This is not very good. If I want my Mirrodin walls, and I don't, but Wall of Steel is what? Steel Wall. That's what it's called. Steel Wall. Idiot. Steel Wall is the one I generally go for instead. 1 mana for a 0/4, and it doesn't have to block everything, but it can block more things. That's not bad. This is the idea here is that it with 2 power, it's able to block things better. It can trade in combat. Okay. But it's also forced to trade. So your opponent can choose what creature they want to throw in, knowing that you have to block it anyway, and that's kind of bad. I don't like this. I also don't play Steel Wall like this. I just like Steel Wall. I played in Mirrodin. I'm thinking about Mirrodin walls that cost 1 mana. But yeah, I don't like this one pretty much at all. So I'm going to give it a 1.1. Next up is Dread Return. Ooh, Pauper staple. Here we go. Dread Return is 2 and double black for a sorcery that says return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it also has flashback. Sacrifice 3 creatures. So you may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, but then you have to exile it. This is the dredge decks. All the dredge decks love this card. All the spy decks love this card because those are basically just dredge decks. The idea, it's fine in your hand. It's a pretty darn solid zombify effect reanimation spell in your hand. 4 mana for a reanimation is good. Most of the reanimation spells cost 5 these days, except for zombify. Zombify is 4. That's a classic too. But this is a zombify. But if you're in those dredge decks and you're milling a bunch of cards, because that's what the deck does, you end up milling one of these. Oh no, I milled the spell that I really wanted. No. You're even happier that you milled this because the flashback cost is essentially free. You're not paying mana for it. You're just sacking creatures and your town greeters and your Circle of the Land Druid. Circle of the Land Druid, is that what it's called? Circle of the Land. Yeah, Circle of the Land Druid. I have a dredge deck. What am I doing? I should know these cards. Those cards are just little 1/1 creatures who are asking to die, begging to die for the cause of a dread return. Let's say you play 3 of them. You've milled 12 cards. One of them might be a dread return. And then you can sacrifice all 3 and you go get your Lotleth Giant, which is what Dredge wants to do. And you go to town. This card is great. It's so good. Is it better than Kessig Flamebreather? Whew. God, that's tough. That's tough. Is it better than Exhume? I think it is better than Exhume because you can use it twice, which is really cool. And one of those times being essentially free is awesome. So I think it's better than Exhume. It's probably right there with Kessig Flamebreather. I'm gonna give this an 8.4. God, Dread Return. What a card. What a card. Moving on. Steward of Valeran is a Selesnya mana. It's a green and a white for a 2/2 human druid knight. It's got vigilance and it can also tap for a white. I think that's fun. I like when Wizards smashes cards together like this. You know, it's or at least smashes the idea of cards together. Because on one hand, like, this is a Llanowar elf, and I don't really know a 1/1 with vigilance off the top of my head, but a 1/1 white vigilance, I mean. But vigilance is a very white ability. Mana Dork is a very green ability. Smash them together. You pay 2 mana, you get both abilities. One from green, one from white. You get kind of a card that's both. I like that. I just like that. I think that makes Selesnya feel like Selesnya. You get a better idea of what that guild's all about because you do. I mean, I know this is not a Selesnya card exactly. Like, this is from Shards of Alara, so it's, you know, going for a different the shards. There's a third color in there somewhere, even if this guy doesn't have the third color. But for me, I'm thinking Ravnica. You know, it is 2 mana. It is Selesnya. I'm thinking about Selesnya. But I like that design philosophy. I think that's cool. The card itself, it's kind of whatever. You know, I'll say it again. It's a grizzly bear. Grizzly bear with vigilance and can also tap. So it's kind of like a werebear. Yeah. Everybody remember werebear? God, wouldn't it be great if we got werebear on this? But we could take a quick look at werebear. Look at that guy. Oh, he's only a 1/1. I forgot werebear is only a 1/1. But 2 mana dork, but it has threshold, so it can get bigger sometimes. But anyway, that's not important. This guy's okay. And I like the art too. Greg Staples, solid job. 2.5. Skola Grove Dancer is 1 and a green for enchantment creature Satyr Druid. Whenever a land is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain a life. Did I say it's a 2/2? I don't think I said it's a 2/2, but it is a 2/2. You can also pay 2 and a green and mill a card. Another Grizzly Bear, originally from Theros, but also put into Dustborn Commander. That's the is that the Zimone one? I think I could be wrong. It's okay. I don't think these abilities are all that good. Where do you put it? That's always the question. Is what kind of deck does it go in? It's not something that's good enough where you build a deck around it. That's for sure. But where would you put it? You know, do you put it in Dredge because it mills cards? Not really. Cost to mill a card is really high. The cost to put this guy on the table, you can play the Town Greeter instead. You can play the Circle of the Land Druid instead. You get more mill value out of that. The life gain. There's better ways to gain life. You can gain a lot more life in with other green cards. We've mentioned those over the course of this recording, but yeah, where does it go? Not really anywhere, and that's really kind of the open and shut case on this one. It's 2.2, and not just for the meme. I think that's what it actually deserves. Hydro Surge is a single blue mana for an instant. Target creature gets -5, -0 until end of turn. Thirsty. That's flavor text. I don't know. It pretty much blanks a creature. You can be pretty guaranteed that it will blank a creature. But is that good enough? No, not really. Unsummon blanks the creature too. And it does a whole lot more. Yeah, Unsummon's just a better card than that. Bounce Off is a better card than Unsummon, unfortunately. There's just better things you can do with your blue mana than play Hydro Surge. I will give this a still, for what it is, respectable 1.4, but it's not very good. Ubel. Ubelsar Gatekeepers is 3 and a black for a 2/4 zombie soldier. When this creature enters, if you control 2 or more gates, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. I don't think it's good. There's some gates decks out there. You're not playing gates because you can play this guy. You're playing gates so you can make lifelink guys big or make your Guardian of the Guild pack big. It's not so you can take out a creature. This thing costs too much anyway. It's not a very good body even when it's on the ground. No, this is bad. This is just bad. We'll give it a 1.5. Dimir Informant is 2 and a blue for a 1/4 human rogue. When this creature enters, you surveil 2. That's pretty darn normal, isn't it? I like the art. That's probably about it. This isn't even blinkable. Like 3 mana for a 1/4 is real bad. Real bad. Let's go with a 1.9. Wart Eye Witch is 2 and a black for a 3/2 Goblin Shaman. Whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, you scry 1. Ooh, man. Here's the problem. Is that oh god, what is that called? I'll get it. Yell at the screen. Single black mana for she a vampire? I think she is a vampire. You sacrifice a creature and you get to scry 1. Viscera Seer. Jesus. I knew I'd get it eventually. Come on. Typing's got to get better than that. Viscera Seer. It is a vampire. Look at that. And it's in Pauper. So, you know what? 4 more 1-drops for the vampire deck. I don't think you'd play this in the vampire deck. But you could. So being able to sacrifice and then scry is pretty good. I guess this is useful in case your opponent kills your creatures. But the Viscera Seer can just do that whenever the creature was going to die anyway. So I think it's just better. 3 mana, you do get a 3/2 instead of a 1/1, but you're paying 3 mana instead of just single mana. And also, you're playing black. It's also a goblin. You know, goblins generally want them to be red. Yeah, it's just kind of a lot of things that are almost there, but nothing that's quite enough there to make me excited about this card. So we'll give it a 2.1. I think a 2.1 is fine. Martyr of Ashes is a single red mana for a 1/1 human shaman. You can pay 2 and reveal X red cards from your hand. Sacrifice this creature. This creature deals X damage to each creature without flying. Huh. That is an interesting take on the Kirk Clan Shaman. And that was a Mirrodin card. So for this to be in Cold Snap, those weren't too far away from each other. You know, there aren't a ton of great board wipe options in Pauper. And this can do a pretty sizable amount of damage. And not being able to damage creatures with flying is pretty bad. You know, you're gonna wanna take out fairies, you're gonna want to take out I don't know, ornithopters, something like that. And this isn't gonna do much against those. There are other flying creatures out there. Dragons, I guess. You know, has anybody other than me made a Pauper dragon deck? Probably not. Glinthawks, there you go. Core Skyfishers, Refurbished Familiars. There's some flyers out there. So it doesn't do anything against those. But it's a 1 mana 1/1 with some abilities later. You can do it at instant speed, so it could really be 3 mana to play this on your turn and immediately pay the cost and do the stuff. I don't know, it's interesting. I'm surprised I haven't seen anybody ever talk about this card or play this card, but I think you could do something with it. We've talked before. There was a Champions of Kamigawa card or a Saviors of Kamigawa card. We talked about the ogre guy and about how red, would rather just dump its hand when it can. So how many cards are actually going to be in your hand when you do this, and you have to reveal those cards. It's kind of just telling your opponent what you're going to do. Although if you're a burn deck, kind of what do you care? I'm just gonna, I've got 4 lightning bolts in my hand. Are you gonna stop them? No. Boom, 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 boom. Like, what are you gonna do? I'm still gonna give it like a 2.7, but I can't imagine it's an amazing card. Took Reaper is 1 and a white for a 2/1 halfling peasant. When this creature dies, the ring tempts you. Ooh, this might be our first ring tempting card. Do I remember? All right, can I remember off the top of my head 50 or what, basically 70 cards in at this point? Can I remember what the different ring tiers are? There's 4 of them, if I'm not mistaken. The first one, so the ring goes on a creature you control, and that creature becomes legendary, I think. I think that's just what it is normally. I don't think that's what the abilities do. There is an ability that is a rummage effect. Maybe it's a loot effect. Oh god, I'm already screwing up. I think it's the first one, I think, is a loot or a rummage. The second one is like a skulk effect, I think, where it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. And then there's another one that's like an opponent loses 2 life. You might even gain 2 life. Oh god, I'm screwing this one up for sure. Let's all right, let's see what the ring does. There are 4. We know about that. The ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. That's the first one. So I'm already a little bit wrong, but at least I kind of knew some of the abilities that happen. Whenever your ring bearer attacks, you draw a card and discard a card. Okay, there's your loot effect. Whenever your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices it at the end of combat. I forgot about that one totally. And whenever the ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. Okay, so it wasn't 2 life, it was 3, but that has taken over combat damage. All right. That's the problem with the ring. That's the problem with any card that says the ring tempts you, is everybody has to remember what the frickin' ring does. And I'd say very few people can. I think more people can tell you everything the Questing Beast does rather than tell you everything that the ring does for you. I don't know, man. It's not very good. Like don't worry about the ring for a second. It's a 2 mana for a 2/1. These are not good creature types. And then the ring stuff is okay bonuses, I guess. The good thing about the ring is that you make a creature your ring bearer, and it gets that first ability. And then the next time the ring tempts you, you get the second ability. The third, you get the third. The fourth, you get the fourth. But if somebody kills your ring bearer, the next time the ring tempts you, you get to choose a new ring bearer. And it remembers all the things that's already been unlocked here. So you don't have to go back down the list again. So at some point, you can just keep putting the ring on a new creature, and it just has all this good stuff on it to begin with. And that's cool. That's a cool late game thing. I've never heard anybody talk about the ring tempting you in Pauper. I don't know if there's just not enough cards that the ring tempts you with, or nobody wants the hassle. I don't want the hassle. That's why I'm not playing any of them. But it's possible there's just not enough there's not enough decent the ring tempting you effects. I'm going to give this a pretty bad score. I'm going to give it a 1.3, and we'll keep going. Whew, I'm starting to feel it now. That was our 70th card, if my count's right, and I don't think that it is, but it's close. Breath Sealer we have done recently. Love the art on this card. Love this card generally. Urborg Panther, Feral Shadow, make my Spirit of the Night big boy. I love it. But we've already done it. Wait, what? No, you can't do that. That's so weird. We've also done Urborg Panther before, but the same, everything I just said, but say it again. All right. If that was going to be Feral Shadow, I would have gone nuts. Glyph of Life is a single white mana for an instant. Choose target wall creature. Whenever that creature is dealt damage by an attacking creature this turn, you gain that much life. Oh boy. Oh, that is so bad. That is so bad. This is a 1. Do I even have to explain? There are some defender decks in Pauper. I'm not sure actually how many walls the defender decks play. I think they're just creatures with defender mostly. But there aren't a whole lot of walls, and this would not be played in it anyway. This card is so bad. Just a 1. Get out of here. Goblin Outlander is a black and a red. That's Rakdos mana. For a 2/2 Goblin Scout, and it's got protection from white. Yeah, no, it's not very good. I was trying to think, like, how can, this is a sideboard card when you go against white decks, and, you can put enchantments or something on it. You can put like a Unholy Strength on it. Now it's a 4/3 that can't be blocked by white creatures. Okay, and they're not going to be able to kill it with any of their white spells. Like Thraben Charm doesn't do anything to it. Okay, there's, maybe there's stuff. Maybe there's stuff, right? And just the answer is no. You don't play this. White goes wide, and this protection is really good against things that are going tall. But yeah, it's not good. It's not good. We'll give it a 1.7. Acorn Harvest is a pretty decent card, I think. Acorn Harvest is 3 and a green for a sorcery that says create 2 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens, and it has flashback for 1 and a green and pay 3 life. So we've talked about flashback before. This is not a card that's fantastic in your hand, but it's a card that's fantastic in your graveyard. Gets to make a couple of guys. Let's go back and talk about Dread Return a little bit more. This is why this card sometimes shows up in dredge decks. Not every dredge deck. My dredge deck doesn't use it, but you can understand why dredge decks would want to play it. In your graveyard, this is 2 mana for 2 creatures and paying the 3 life. Big deal. You'll be fine. You can pay that 3 life. But now you put 2 creatures onto the table, and now you've got your 2/3 of the way to your dread return. So also think about it this way: you play a town greeter, you mill 4 cards. Maybe one of those cards is the Acorn Harvest. The next turn, you use the Acorn Harvest. You put another 2 bodies out. Now you have your 3 bodies, town greeter and the 2 squirrels, and now you sacrifice all 3 of those to the dread return. You bring in your Lotleth Giant, you bring in your Generous Ent, your Troll of Khazad-dûm, whatever, and now you're cooking. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The bummer is when it gets in your hand. You go, I got to find 4 mana to play this thing, and I don't want to do that. I have better ways to spend my mana. Most of the time, you'll just be able to mill this into your graveyard, and if you get it in your opening hand, maybe you mulligan. You can get it out of there, and then try to get other cards. It's good. It's good in the dredge decks. It's one of those cards that just doesn't have to be played in the dredge decks. I think dredge decks have enough other options that they can go without this, but it's pretty good when they do play it. That puts it in the 5 range. I'll give it a 5.5, I think. Playable, not all-star, Shatter Skull Recruit is 3 and double red. God, I almost did it again. For a 4/4 giant warrior ally with Menace. 5 mana for a 4/4 with Menace. It is an ally, which can be useful. I don't think the giant or warrior parts matter too much, but the ally part might. But it's just a 5/5 with Menace. Or 4/4 with Menace, but it costs 5. I don't love it. We'll give it a 2. 1.9. 1.9. I don't want to give it the allure of a 2, the glory of a 2. Wall of Earth, 1 and a red for a 0/6 wall with Defender, of course. That's pretty decent stats for 2 mana. I'm not saying you should play walls. Almost certainly you shouldn't. And if you are playing walls, you're probably not playing red. But this thing blocks a lot of stuff. It really does. And it's got this cool Richard Thomas art. It's all right. It's all right. I'm going to give it a 1.5. Shadowcloak Vampire is 4 and a black for a 4/3 vampire. You can pay 2 life, and this creature gains flying until end of turn. I would not put this in that vampire deck I was talking about. 5 mana is a lot. You do get a 4/3. That's not too bad. A 4/3 that can gain flying each turn. Can gain flying on your opponent's turn if you need to block with it, but having to continue to pay 2 life every single time, that's not going to be great. If you had something where you want your life total to be lower for some specific reason, I think there's a lot more uncommon and rare cards that can really play with, hey, I've got a really low life total and I wound reflection and now everybody's got the low life total, or I exchange life totals. You don't see those on common cards. But there might be something where, wants your life total to be low to be able to get some kind of other benefit. And maybe this guy goes in those, but he also costs a lot. So by the time you'd be able to play him, maybe you don't need that effect really anymore. Anyway, he's not very good. Don't worry about him. We'll go for a 1.8. Ooh, lips. Arbor Armament is a single green mana for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains a reach until end of turn. I do like that it's a counter instead of just +1/+1 until end of turn. That's okay. The reach means you mostly are going to be wanting to play this on defense, and Snakeskin Veil gives you a +1/+1 counter and hexproof. And I think that's just the better protection spell and a more useful card at more points in the game than being able to block one flyer one time. And yeah, you do get the power and toughness boost continually, but yeah. We'll go with a... Let's go with a 2. Still not very good, but it's, better than you might think, I guess. Wood Lurker Mimic is 1, and our hybrid. I think this is our first hybrid card that we've dealt with so far today. Hybrid Golgari, so you can pay a black or a green. And you get a 2/1 Shapeshifter. Whenever you cast a spell that's both black and green, this creature has base power and toughness 4/5 until end of turn, and gains Wither until end of turn. So Wither says it deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. How many Golgari cards are you really playing in Pauper? Grizzly Salvage? Yeah. Grizzly Salvage is one that you could play. Could play. I don't know that you do play. Just trying to think, like, what are the cards that you play that are green and black? I don't think there's a ton. All right, I am gonna. We're at like 75 plus at this point. I'm gonna indulge a little bit and say green and black cards, and they are legal in Pauper. What do we got? We got 40 cards. Let's sort these by mana value. Odious Tro, so single cram session. That's a pretty good one. If you're going to do learn and lesson stuff, that could be interesting. I don't think Odious Tro is all that useful, but as a thing that you could play 1 mana and get, that's okay. That's kind of fun with the scavenge. That's interesting. Llanowar Dead. Yeah, I remember Llanowar Dead. Yeah, I'm not seeing a ton of stuff here that I would really be all that excited about. Oh, the Earth Village Ruffians. That's a newish one that's okay. Yeah, I just don't think there's enough Golgari cards here that you're like, oh, I can't wait to play these cards to get the benefits of making that thing into a 4/5 with Wither. Like, 4/5 with Wither's cool, but what other garbage do you have to play? And if this thing's not on the table, do you want to play any of that garbage? And I think the answer is no. So this card doesn't have a home. And so it gets here's the deal. If Wizards produces more good Golgari cards, which they could at common, this thing's stock goes up. But right now, with the cards available to it, we just looked at all 40 of them. Well, 39, because this is one of them. Well, yeah, I guess, okay, this works with itself. If you play a second one, the first one gets the 4/5 and Wither. That's something, I suppose. Yeah. And I suppose that doesn't take into account anything that is more than 2 colors. It can be both black and green and red. But we're not looking up those. I imagine there's quite a few less of those, and I don't want to mess with all the colors. Anyway, the point is that this card could get a lot better with the addition of new cards. But right now, I think it's pretty bad. And I think I'll give it a 2.3. And really, the 0.3 is saying, hey, there's some potential here. But I think this card is mostly just a 2 on its own. Canopy Claws, love this art, is a single green mana for an instant. Target creature loses flying until end of turn, and it has flashback for another green. Not very good. Like, pretty situational. I don't even think as a sideboard piece, this is too niche for that. too situational even for the sideboard. But man, look at that art. Matthew Mitchell, you were cooking on that one. Let's go for 1.2. Suicidal Charge is 3, and Rakdos, which is a black and a red for an enchantment. Sacrifice this enchantment. Creatures your opponent's control get -1/-1 until end of turn. Those creatures attack this turn if able. That is fascinating. That is really fascinating. That is... I'm thinking more of it for Commander than anything else. That's kind of cool. It's like goading, but they can attack you, and they might attack you if you've if you've pissed them off. But it also can kill a bunch of their little guys, and also make their bigger guys into less big guys, and so they're much easier to block that way. That's cool. Something at instant speed that you can do. Now, of course, instant speed, so you want to do it when they go to combat or before they go to combat. But 5 mana to just put that on the table and go, I don't know, guys, it's a loaded gun. You tell me. You tell me. Are we going to have a problem here? In Pauper, lot less interesting. 5 mana to get kind of a board wipe. And not even necessarily a very good board wipe. Yeah, you force them into attacks, and if you have good blocks, you can really blow them out. But they're going to be seeing this from a mile away. It's already been on the table. Yeah. I don't particularly like it for Pauper. I really kind of dig it for Commander though. That's interesting. Let's go with a. Oh, and we're just talking about Pauper. Let's go 1.5. Treetop Scout, single green mana for a 1/1 elf scout. This creature can't be blocked except by creatures with flying. Where do you put it? It's a good card. It's kind of like a 1/1 flyer in green. That's cool. But where do you put it? Do you put it in your elves deck? No. You have other elves that you pay 1 mana for that you play over this. Yeah, you don't play this in elves. Do you play this in Bogles, where it's kind of a flyer? That's cool. It has some evasion to it. No, because it doesn't have the protection that it needs. You have a Silhana Ledgewalker that is basically this, but it costs an extra mana and it has hexproof. And you play that one because it has hexproof and can only be blocked by creatures with flying. So that's pretty good. But this guy alone has no home. Has no home. We've talked about it a number of times on this recording. If you got no home, you can't really get much of a good score. I'll give you a 2. But that's about it. Next. Riot Ringleaders, 2 and a red for a 2/2 human warrior. When this creature attacks, human creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Okay. Human, pretty common creature type. And this says humans you control. Counts this guy. So he's really a 3/2 when he's attacking. And he battle cries the rest of your humans. How many red humans are there that you really want to play in Pauper? There's some. I bet you could cobble together a handful of pretty good humans, mostly in red, but maybe you go Boros, maybe you go Rakdos. There's stuff you can make work with humans. I think there's just slightly more synergistic cards in this. And unless we had a preponderance, big word there, of really good humans that are mostly in red. Like I said, I think you can cobble together some humans, but you're not really getting Pauper Staple, and now this card that buffs them all, and all of them synergized with each other outside of just the power boost they get from this. I don't think you have enough synergy. That's also the problem with humans, is they don't necessarily all synergize with each other because they're such glue. Like they show up in such variety that they will sometimes have conflicting powers or just powers that don't do anything with each other, and you don't really put them together as a deck. Anyway, it's a lot of talk to say this is a pretty good card, but I don't think it's anything higher than a 3. Yeah, just a 3. Guiding Voice, single white mana for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and you learn. So we were just talking about Cram Session, but learning is you may reveal a lesson card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand, or you can rummage, which is discarding a card and to draw a card. From outside of the game in this instance in a Pauper match means from your sideboard. So you can put a lot of one-off lessons in your sideboard. And now for a single mana, you get a +1/+1 counter guy, and you kind of get to tutor for whatever you need at that point. And we've learned, especially with Avatar coming out, that there's some pretty good lessons to go grab. And with Strixhaven, right around the corner, the next Strixhaven right around the corner, there might be even more. This card's already gotten its stock raised by Avatar, and again, we might see it go even higher once the next Strixhaven set comes out. This is good. This is a good card. This is one of the better learn cards because it's so cheap, too, and because this ability is always fine. Putting a 1/1 counter on your creature, always okay. You're never sad about putting a +1/+1 counter on your creature. I'm gonna give this a 5.8. You don't see it show up in a lot of decks right now, but it is playable, and it will probably continue to get even more playable as 2026 rolls on. Ooh, starting to feel it. Ceradon Yearling is Boros mana, red and white, for a 2/2 beast with vigilance and haste. That's a pretty good grizzly bear right there. Vigilance and haste, 2/2. That's a nice combination of French vanilla abilities. Some nice keywords. But that's kind of all it is. And they're not even the best keywords. They're good keywords. Haste especially, good keyword. But, if it said haste first strike, maybe it'd be a little better. Anyway, I'll still give it like a 2.3. It's all right. Master's Call has some mirror in it. I do love mirror. Should I grab some copies of this card just because it has mirror in it? Master's Call is 2 and a white for an instant. Create 2 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature tokens. Yeah, it's costs a little bit more than you want it to. I think for 2 mana. Now we're talking. For 3 mana, you get it. You understand why it costs 3 mana when it was made anyway. But now you've got it's not in Pauper, but Resolute Reinforcements. So yeah, not in Pauper, but this is what people play if you want to make 2 bodies for 2 mana. So it's a 1/1. It's got flash, so basically like an instant. And when it enters, you make another 1/1. That's just better. The only other thing, they are artifacts, so that can matter if you're playing some kind of affinity. And they are mirror, which do have some abilities and synergy with each other if you're trying to make a mirror specific deck, but I don't think you're playing this card. I don't think most of the mirror decks there's not like there's a lot of mirror decks out there, but I don't think the decks that play mirror are necessarily playing white. So this card doesn't fit in there either. Looks great though. God, I love these little dudes. Love them so much. Let's give it a, I don't know. Affinity still matters, right? Instant speed, put 2 guys on the table. Next turn, you play your Refurbished Familiar because you're in Orzhov. And I don't know. You kind of go to town. I'll give it a 2. That's probably too high, but I'll give it a 2. Oh, we got to be getting close, right? 60, 70, 80, 87, I think is my count. Lightning Core Excavator is a single mana for a 0/3 golem. That's an artifact creature. You can pay 5, tap, and sacrifice this creature, and it deals 3 damage to any target. 1 mana for a 0/3 is kind of interesting. It's a solid blocker in the early game. Paying 5 mana, sacking the creature to deal just 3 damage, you know, that's a lot. I do like that maybe you've gotten your use out of it over the course of the game, and now you have a bunch of mana, and you go, well, I can spend this to kill a guy. That's fine, or 3 damage to do an extra little bit to my opponent's face. That's kind of cool too. But I think for the most part, you can play more impactful stuff that moves your game plan forward, and you play those instead. Let's go for a 1.6. Crown of Ascension is 1 and a blue for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature has flying, and you can sacrifice this aura. Have enchanted creature and other creatures that share a creature type with it gain flying until end of turn. These crowns are really cool. I think this is a cycle. There are other crowns from Onslaught block. Am I correct in that? Am I correct in that? If I say Crown of, yeah. The Crown of Awe is really good. You'll see that in Bogle's decks, sideboards of Bogle's decks. It's a solid one there. Crown of Fury is kind of interesting. It's a pretty good one too. Crown of Vigors, kind of whatever. Crown of Suspicions, all right. It can be a pretty decent boost if you've got the right cards in there. So this is an interesting cycle. This one's okay. Giving your creature flying for 2 mana is not great, but being able to then, on a very critical turn, give all your creatures flying and give them that evasion to get in and do what they need to do. Maybe you're in, ninjas, and you're able to give all your ninjas flying. They all go in, and you get to draw a bunch of cards from that. That's cool, but you can already kind of do that in fairies without needing this card. You'll find a way. You'll make it work. So, I don't think it really has a place like a lot of the cards that we've seen today, but it's interesting and it's not bad. And if you're playing in some kind of typal deck that could really use flying one turn, this might be the card to play. I'll give it a 1.8. Still not something to really write home about, but it's okay. Hey, it's a good one. We haven't had a good one for a bit, I don't think. Fierce Empath is 2 and a green for a 1/1 elf. When this creature enters, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value 6 or greater, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Originally from Scourge? Yeah, Scourge. And I know that because I actually just looked at this card today. I was making a couple of edits to my Monster Tron deck that's mono green. And I've got a couple copies, I think 3 copies of this card in that deck because it's good. The creature itself, obviously not good. You're paying 3 mana for a 1/1. Big deal. But the big deal is that you get to go find the real impactful thing. You get to go find your Maelstrom Colossus. You get to go find your Ulamog's Crusher. You get to go find your Brambleworm, whatever. Those are just cards that I play in my Tron deck. Your Avenging Hunter. No, not Avenging Hunter. That's 5. But you do get to go find a lot of really big, impactful creatures that presumably you'd be able to play because you're in Tron. You'll have the mana for it the next turn. Maybe even the turn you put this down. Maybe you have so much mana you're able to do that. And so that can be really cool. Like this is a good tutor for the best card in your deck, the big finisher in your deck. You just need enough mana to play it. And Tron can do that. So in that sense, this is a really good card. Outside of Tron, it doesn't really go anywhere, right? What would be interesting is if you played a Simic Terror deck, and you could play this card to go find your terror, knowing that you have the instants and sorceries in your graveyard to go play at that turn, or your Cryptic Serpent. That could be cool. I haven't seen a whole lot of Simic Terror lists, and I'm gonna guess that this card probably isn't in there because I bet those decks would end up using like Malevolent Rumble, and so you could just mill a bunch of cards into your graveyard, but then grab back the the serpents when you find them. So you probably don't need this in those decks, but this is a good card generally. And man, I like it. I like it. I'm gonna give it a 5.8. 5.8. Pretty good card. Is that 90? 60, 70, 80, 90. 10 cards to go, guys. It's like a regular episode. This is easy. This is easy. Take a breath. Here we go. Thraben. Oh, it's the one! It's the one! We did it! We did it! Oh, I'm so excited. Why am I so excited about Thraben Inspector? It's because of this one. This is our not our thumbnail. It's our profile picture. It's the common knowledge mascot. It's Thraben Inspector. Specifically, this regional championship RCQ qualifier, regional championship qualifier in RCQ from 2022. Look how good this card looks, and it's only 80 cents. You can just go buy a bunch of really cool Thraben Inspectors. And I did. I generally like to have the common mana symbol. I want to have that black mana symbol when I'm playing my cards in Pauper, just so everybody knows. Hey, yeah, I know it's common, right? We all know it's common. But this is the one I splurged on, and it was like, I want to bling these guys out specifically. Yeah, God, Thraben Inspector, baby. Okay, let's read the card first, and then I'll get even more giddy. Thraben Inspector. For a single white mana, you get a 1/2 human soldier, and when this creature enters, you investigate, which means you create a clue token, and it's an artifact with 2, or pay 2, and sacrifice the token to draw a card. Thraben Inspector rules. It's a turn 1 play that puts an artifact on the table. So if you're playing any sort of affinity kind of stuff, I have this in Orzhov Blade. Of course, it's a fantastic card in Orzhov Blade. It helps you get to your refurbished familiar faster, as fast as turn 2, honestly. Because if you play this, and maybe you played it with you put an Ancient Den out and you play this, now you have 2 artifacts. Now you play a black mana of any kind, or you play the Vault of Whispers on turn 2 instead of, and you play a Plains on turn 1. You have the mana you need to cast your refurbished familiar. That's great. This guy is okay enough to bounce if you want to bounce with your core Skyfisher in that deck, and then you replay it and you get another clue token. Okay, that's fine. You're okay with that. There's better things to bounce and play again than this in that deck, but it's a fine play if you need to. Creating clue tokens is really good, not just for the affinity part, but having the ability to draw a card at instant speed when you're on the end of your opponent's end step. You just pop one of these, and now you draw an extra card. It doesn't have to be on your opponent's turn. It can be on your turn if you really need to find that card at the time that you need it. Clue tokens are good. Clue tokens are good. He's just a great card. He's just a good dude. It's a 1/2, so he even blocks a little bit. Just one of the better 1-drops you can play in pretty much any white deck. You can play this in some go wide strategies. You can play it in the Orzhov Blade deck like I do, or Esper Blade. Sometimes Esper Bounce kind of decks can play this too. He's just good. He's just good. He's so good that they made another one. They made Novice Inspector for Murders of Karlov Manor. And a lot of decks that will play 4 of this guy might even play 4 of Novice Inspector. I ended up tuning my Orzhov Blade deck just a little bit, where I took out all the Novice Inspectors and put in some Blood Fountains instead, which felt like they helped the affinity a little bit better. But certainly having basically 8 Thraben Inspectors in your deck is not going to do you any harm for sure. Great card. Great card. God, I want to give it a 10. It's the mascot. It's the mascot of the channel. But I think if we're being realistic, this is like a 7.7. But man, really good card. Really good card. That's the first. That's our 91st card. It's our first one in this last group here. That's awesome. This art's also fine, but man, that's the one right there, baby. You can also get a retro frame one. That's pretty cool too. Like this, just Oh, I hadn't seen that one before. That one's pretty good too. There's lots of cool Thraben Inspectors out there, but nothing beats this one. Look at that. Look at my boy. Look at my boy right there. All right, we gotta move on. Spire Serpent is 4 and a blue for a 3/5 Serpent with Defender. It also has Metalcraft. As long as you control 3 or more artifacts, this creature gets +2/+2 and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Okay, well, Metalcraft's easy enough. You can play Thraben Inspector with it. Metalcraft's easy enough. Artifact lands and all sorts of things like tokens. Getting the artifacts is not the problem. The problem is that this thing is still 5 mana no matter what you do. It doesn't have any sort of affinity. It doesn't have the Tolarian Terror kind of stuff. So, when you lose the artifacts, this thing goes back to being a 3/5 that can't attack. But when you do have the artifacts, this is a 5/7. This stops Tolarian Terrors. This stops Gurmag Anglers. Right? Gurmag Angler is just a 5/5 with Delve, right? It doesn't have Menace or anything. I feel like I talk about Gurmag Angler all the time. Yeah, just a 5/5 with Delve. What are you talking about? So a 5/7 does block a lot of the scariest stuff in Pauper. But you do have to have 5 whole mana to put it on the table, and then you have to have the artifacts to be able to turn it into that. I think that's asking a little much. And also, even if you do have the artifacts, even if this is a 5/7 for 5, it's still vanilla. It's not getting through for damage. It doesn't have ward like the Tolarian Terror does. So it's just altogether worse. And I'm going to give it a 2, mostly for those defensive capabilities. But I don't think you really ever play it. Hyena Pack. Hey, we got another vanilla creature. Hyena Pack is 2 and double red for a 3/4 Hyena. And that's it. Originally from Amonkhet. Only from Amonkhet. 4 mana for a 3/4 is not too good, especially when it's double pips. Why is it double pips? That's extremely unnecessary. Let's give it a 1.4. Did I mark that one down? I did not. I marked down the vanilla. I didn't mark that down though. Naya Panorama. We've done a Bant Panorama before, so I'm not gonna do this. We just did Bant Panorama not too long ago, so it gets the same score, has all the same problems. You won't play it, so we'll just skip that one. Looks nice though. Leap. I think we just did this one. Did we just do this one? I'm going to do it anyway, and I'll tell you why. It's because today, as I'm recording this, I just got a copy of this card in the mail. I made it's like I call it bar. I don't have time for this. I'll try to give you the very quick details. I have a thing called Bar Cube. I'll put a link to it in the description of this. But I've got a thing called Bar Cube, which is, or not Bar Cube, Bar Box, which is a mix of Bar Cube, which is making a cube of Magic the Gathering cards that don't use any tokens or dice or counters or anything, any extraneous pieces like that. You can just play with the cardboard, and that's it. So there's Bar Cube out there, so it's like a draft environment, but you don't have any of the extraneous stuff. And then there's also like Party Box or what else do they call it? I forgot what they call it. I call it Party Box. But the idea of like a shared library format where everybody draws from the same library and has the same graveyard, and you can put down cards as lands, and then you can put cards face down as lands. I'm not doing a very quick job of this, am I? The whole point, though, is that I wanted to have just a small box of cards, 100-ish cards, and I wanted them to be to have the bar stuff where they don't have to have any of the extraneous pieces, and I also made sure it was all pre-modern. So because I just like those cards, those are the cards I have nostalgia for, is all the pre-modern cards. And it's just this collection of cards that I really like and think look cool, have cool arts to them, or do an interesting thing. And the power level is not nuts because it's pre-modern, but also like all the cards are pretty darn cheap. I don't think there's really anything above $5, and most of the stuff is less than $1. Like Shivan Dragon is one of the most expensive cards in the thing. It's not about having expensive cards. It's about just finding cool things, playing a Sarah Angel or playing a Leap. And I think Leap is a cool card. Leap is a single blue mana for an instant. Target creature gains flying until end of turn, and you draw a card. That's it. It's a cantrip effect that also gives a creature flying for a turn. It's flight, but it's better. Right? Flight. There's no zebra on it, but it's got Miri, right? That's Miri. Yeah, Miri leapt quickly and silently. The guard died likewise. It's a great card. Love this art. Kev Walker again. Banging art. Yeah, I like it. What can I say? The card itself, I wouldn't say it's really playable in Pauper. It is nice that it does cantrip. Could this go in your mono blue terror deck? Could. Give your 5/5 flying and swing in. Cool. And it's an instant, so it makes the next one that you play, it makes the next terror that you play even cheaper. Great. But you can do better in mono blue terror, and you can do better most any other place too. This card doesn't see any play, nor really should it, but it's not too bad. I am going to give it a 3, because anything that cantrips like that deserve. I'm giving you even higher than that. I'm going to give it a 3.2. Cantrips, and it gives evasion, single mana. That's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. Ramosian Rally is 3 and a white for an instant. If you control a plains, you may tap an untapped creature you control rather than pay the spell's mana cost, and creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. It's pretty good. It's a free spell. Essentially a free spell. If you're in mono white, go wide. You do lose out on one creature attacking, but because you had to tap it to pay the mana cost, or to pay the cost of the card instead of paying the mana cost. But you get an anthem for every other guy. You get a nice little pump for the turn. It's not bad. You can really you can leave a guy back to block. Well, leave a guy back with your opponent thinking, oh, you're going to block with it, and then you tap that guy at instant speed and combat trick him and give everybody +1/+1. That could be okay. That could, maybe your opponent doesn't block you because they think, oh, maybe they think they have you the next turn, and you're only leaving up that one blocker, and we'll just lightning bolt that blocker or something, and it'll be fine. And you go, well, actually, I'll just murder you now. Like, what if I just had a bunch of extra damage? I've got a friend who's got mono white, go wide. He does not play this card. I don't think he knows this card exists. And to be fair, I didn't really remember that this card existed until I saw it here. But it's got nice Christopher Muller art, and it's not bad. It's not, again, man, free spells are tough to beat, and this can do it. And for a combat trick like that, it's not bad. I'm gonna give it a 5. I haven't seen it be played, but I bet it'd be all right. Ghost Form is 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Up to 2 target creatures can't be blocked this turn. That's kind of cool. Again, I'm thinking about Mono Blue Terror. You have a couple of Tolarian Terrors out there, and you just get to swing in for 10 unblocked. Damn. But that deck also can just swing in for 10, and what are you going to do? Block them and die? Okay, fine. Your guys will just die, and I'll just wear you down. And this card is probably a little slow for those decks. But having 2 creatures just get in for combat damage when on the turn you really need them to could be okay. I will give this a 4.3. Just outside of playable, but not too bad. Professor's Warning is a single black mana for an instant. Choose one. You either put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. I like this card. I've got it in a couple of commander decks as a decent protection spell for black. Black doesn't get a bunch of protection spells. Gets a lot of those, the creature dies but then can come back spells. But just straight up indestructible, that's a little bit more rare, especially for 1 mana. And then the +1/+1 counter can sometimes make a difference. It's instant speed, so it can be a combat trick that way. It's not bad. In Pauper, it's less useful. I think most of your black decks don't mind that a creature dies. I suppose mono black sacrifice, your carrion feeder, your really important creature, you give it indestructible. All right. Or you give it an extra +1/+1 counter when you really need to punch in for that extra damage. Maybe. I could see it being maybe a sideboard piece when you're going up against a lot of removal. But I think it's generally probably gets about the same score as the last card that we saw, and I'll give it a 4.4, actually. Up next, Portent Tracker is 1 and a 4. I almost said 4. 1 and a green for a 1/1 Satyr Scout. You can tap it to untap target land, or you can tap it to choose target battle. Well, it doesn't matter because we don't have battles in Pauper. There's no common battles. But if an opponent protects it, remove a defense counter from it. Otherwise, put a defense counter on it. Okay, that part doesn't matter. So it's just a Satyr. We have a couple of these kind of Satyr creatures that untap lands. It's okay. Mostly you're just going to, in Pauper, you're going to see people play Arbor Elf, which is a single mana, and it's an elf, so it goes in the elf decks. But it taps to untap target forest, which is more restrictive, but in the elf decks, most of the things that they have are forests, if not all the things they have are forests. So they are perfectly fine with something like that. And they would rather pay 1 less mana for this ability, and they'd rather have it be an elf than on a satyr. A satyr is much worse of a creature type, or much less. Oh man, it's been a while. The words are escaping me. It's got a lot less support of a creature type than elf does, for sure. It's whatever. I generally wouldn't play this card, mostly because it would piss me off to read the stuff about battles every time and go, there are no battles in Pauper. Who knows? Maybe there will be a common battle at some point, and this card might be more impactful. But now, it's just kind of bad. It does, you know what? It doesn't untap a target land, and if you have, in the same way that your Arbor Elf can untap a forest that has a wild growth on it or a Utopia Sprawl on it, this guy can untap those lands too. He can untap a Tron land, which an Arbor Elf can't do, and then you can retap a Tron land for even more mana. That's interesting. That's interesting. Now it's got me thinking, should I put this in my Tron deck? And the answer is no, because I don't want to cascade into this guy with Maelstrom Colossus. But it's interesting thought. I think with that thought, I'm going to actually give it a little better score than I anticipated giving it. I'm going to give it a 3.3. Halfway decent. Harvest Pyre is 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile X cards from your graveyard. Harvest Pyre deals X damage to target creature. It's a bummer that it's just a creature, but you also understand exactly why. This would be a Pauper All-Star. This potentially would even be banned in Pauper. I bet this would be banned in Pauper if it could go face. Just imagine like a deck that is all about milling. Maybe it's a green-red, some Gruul action where you're getting to mill a bunch of cards. Maybe it's blue-red where you're milling a bunch of cards. And then you just toss one of these out, exile 20 cards from your graveyard, deal 20 damage to your opponent's face. Damn. Actually, here's an idea. Ooh, this is such a stupid idea. What if what if you play Ragged Veins? An aura with flash. So you can play this at instant speed. That's pretty cool. Whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, its controller loses that much life. You put that on your opponent's creature. Oh shit, maybe I have to make this deck. And then you harvest Pyre. And you exile a bunch of cards from your graveyard. Black can also mill cards. Black can mill a bunch of stuff too. And then Harvest Pyre deals X damage to that creature of that opponent's. That's 4 mana. This is 4 mana for this whole thing. 1 in black and 1 in red. And then you deal damage to that creature, which all gets dealt to the face. Now, your opponent can potentially sacrifice the creature or kill the creature in another way, remove the creature somehow. And then you've lost everything. You had to pay the additional cost to exile all those cards, so you don't get to do it again. But as a combo, God, this is actually the first card I'm writing down that I might have to buy 4 copies of. I want to try this now. That's so bad. Without the combo, this thing's real not amazing because it can't go face. It's just, it's too broken when it can go face. And it's not really good enough when it can't. That's such a weird place to be, where there's kind of no middle ground into when this is just a pretty, could this say, I don't think they would ever make a Magic card like this, but if this said everything that it says, but it can deal X damage to any target if that target is a player, a max of 5. Then it would still be not very good. It would hamper it from being completely broken. But at least you could go face a little bit. I just don't think they make Magic cards like that. But that would be the middle ground that you'd want. For creatures, you can go as high as you want. But for if you just hit your opponent, then a target player, then it could be a max of 5. We don't see that. It'd be not exactly confusing in the rules, but it would not feel good. I think you'd have a lot of players that just wouldn't feel like a card like that was good. But as it is now, this is unplayable. Unless you pair it with Ragged Veins. There are some other Ragged Veins kind of effects out there too. So I think I've got to look into that. That might be a new deck. That's so exciting. We're almost done with this, and I think we have one more card after this, unless I'm really losing my count. But I know we have by my count we have one more card. I might be way over at this point, but anyway, Harvest Pyre plus Ragged Veins. You learn something new. All right, 100th card. It's a worm. I like worms. Feels appropriate to end on. We might have actually done this card before. I think we might have. I'm going to talk about it anyway. Rootbreaker Worm is 5 and double green for a 6/6 worm with trample. That's fine. it's just fine. 7 mana for a 6/6 worm with trample. It's it's just a little too normal. Just a bit too normal. Let's give it a 2.3. And you know me. I gotta do a bonus card, right? Nagging Thoughts, our 101st card, which is probably more than 101 at this point. Nagging Thoughts is 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. And it's got Madness for the same mana cost. That's kind of cool. It's kind of like a sleight of hand, but you do get to put one in the graveyard, so you can potentially do stuff with that instead. But sleight of hand is a single mana, and this is 2. And do you really want to pay an extra mana to just put one of them in the graveyard instead of the bottom of the library? The Madness cost, I think if the Madness cost was just a single blue, now you could potentially do some cool stuff. You You loot. This is the thing you discard. You pay the madness cost. You get the extra value out of it. It's still extra value, I suppose, when you discard it, but you kind of want the discount. Like, hey, I'm discarding a card over here. Like, I should get the discount on that. Doesn't really see any play in Pauper, and I don't think it really should. I will give this a 2.2. All right, seriously, done. We're calling it there. That was episode 100. Let's see. We didn't actually get any dupes from this single episode. We did get some dupes of some cards that we've had in the past. I didn't keep track of that, but we did get a couple of those out there. But we did get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 vanilla creatures out of our 100. That seems about right, honestly. Thanks so much for joining me. If you're still with me this far, I haven't looked at the time yet. Let me check the time. 3 hours. Wow. Wow. We did it. Thanks for joining me on this one. I had a ton of fun. My butt hurts. I'm very hungry. I'm ready to be done with this, but I had a really good time, and I can't wait to bring more common knowledge to you next week. Let's go for another 100 episodes, right? I'll see you then. Bye.